but good evening and welcome to the October 7th, 2024 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Joe Steiner and I chair the board. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted here in City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For the benefit of the interested public, this meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube page and also broadcast on Summit's governmental channel, which is Comcast Channel 34, and if you're on Verizon, it's Channel 30. A transcript of this meeting is also being taken using the video and audio, so we need all speakers to use one of the microphones in the room. Please note that the fire exits are to my right, to your left, and at the back of the room where you entered. The city does have an assisted listening system for the hearing impaired. If anyone needs that system, please obtain it here at the dais and return it thereafter. Ms. Sulios, would you please call the roll of the members?
Sure. Chairman Steiner?
Here.
Vice Chairman Loiketz?
Here.
Mr. Yuko?
Here.
Mr. Nelson?
Here.
Ms. Zahn?
Here.
Mr. Curran?
Here.
Mr. Malay is excused. Ms. Toth?
Here.
Ms. Chifo?
Here.
Mr. Feskins?
Here.
Mr. Chanchuli?
Here.
You have a quorum. You may proceed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Andy Ball is the zoning board's attorney, sitting next to me on my right. He will advise the board members on matters of law and is the key interface with the applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on the applications. Ms. Sulios, whom you just met, is a city employee and is the zoning board secretary. She works with the applicants on preparing their applications, planning our agendas, and keeping our meeting minutes. She also does not vote on the applications. Also present at the table to our right, your left, and front here are the experts who are hired annually by the board to provide input to the board. Tonight we have Carl O'Brien from Collier Engineering. Also present is Tom Behrens from Collier Engineering. Also, I'm sorry, Burgess Associates, I'll get it right. Skipped a line. Anyway, and he's our board planner. These experts are seated there, and they do not vote on those applications. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings, but a maximum of only 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved, and before we enter executive session to vote on an application, you will be advised how many votes are required. Each case begins with the applicant or their attorney giving us an overview of the application process to date and the variances that are required. We then hear from any additional expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. Board members can ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. Once the board members and the board professionals have completed their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to ask questions. This is not the time to tell us what you think about the case. That opportunity will come at the end of the hearing. And please be careful as to how you phrase your questions. They should not be preceded with a statement about the case, but should be a direct question to the witnesses. Also, before you ask your question, please clearly state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address. This is important so that our court reporter is able to keep a clear and accurate public record. After all the witnesses have been heard, members of the audience have their second opportunity to speak, and at that time you may express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. Then the public hearing will be closed and we enter what is called executive session. And that's where the board members discuss the case and vote. You'll be able to listen to our executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in that discussion. The city's zoning officers have asked that we remind all applicants that you must carefully read the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision and pay particular attention to the conditions contained in the resolution. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and present it to John Linson, who is the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, then you have to have one prepared by a civil engineer and submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. If you fail to satisfy all the conditions in a resolution, that will simply delay approving your application and will cause extra work for the city zoning staff. The resolutions documenting our board's decision are normally available 1 month after we decide the case. We have 2 cases this evening, and we'll begin. We're going to suspend with the bringing you up to tell us how many witnesses. We're going to take them in the order that they are on your agenda, and we will begin with 23 Cromwell Parkway, Maximilian and Carolyn Lafrane. Please. You're representing yourself?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. If you could please raise your right hand, I'll swear you in.
Also, that microphone works as well, if you wanted the handheld, it's up to you.
Hey, we made him.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Maximilian Lefranc, Lefranc.
Thank you.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about your application? Do you have any expert witnesses?
I'm sorry, it's not on, you just have to switch it on, I apologize. I didn't want it to die.
Well, the one on the podium works too.
Does that work? Is that better?
Both of them, I don't see the green light on, but the one there is working, I
can
believe.
help you with the handheld, would you prefer the handheld?
No, either is fine. I'll just stand here.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
move it a little close, yes.
All right, perfect. So yeah, happy to. So as mentioned, Maximilian Lefranc, I'm the resident and owner at 23 Cromwell Parkway, block 1802, lot 36, Rio Zone. And we're hoping to install a backup generator in our side yard. Because we're a corner lot, we don't have a backyard as you would classically use to install a backup generator. And so as a result, we're asking for relief from the ordinance to deviate from the minimum of 10 feet from the plot limit. And so that's the location that was suggested by our contractor. But unfortunately, there's no way to fit it within the 10 feet limitations. So, I guess, just to really put it in context, I got the map where, let's put it this way. Like, this is the side of the house. Like, the idea would be to install it right here. As you can see, there's just not enough room to install it within the 10 feet. But as you can see in the next exhibit, the idea would be that it would fit nicely, like right in the back. We'll be able to put the shrubs to isolate it, and so that it's not a nuisance for the neighborhood or for our direct neighbor. But however,
Is the first drawing that you gave us, is that the one that we have? Okay.
Yes.
And the second one we'll have to enter as A1.
Okay.
And unfortunately, you get to leave it.
I-
You'll have to give that to Ms. Sulias
Okay, no problem.
at the end.
We did explore alternative locations. The key issue with the alternative locations are either that they're right in front of the property, so they're much harder to shrub and hide from the neighborhood, or right in the middle of play area for children, which obviously we'd like to avoid. With that, happy to take any questions. Obviously, have all the detail of the specs, et cetera.
Any questions from our experts?
I'll reiterate a few points. So I think what I heard is, because it's a corner lot, that presents a hardship as far as locating the unit, and that it's a better location than the alternatives. Question that I would just ask, just from a super practical matter, is if, let's say the board approves an application, and understanding that your position is that it'll be well screened, it's just, I don't know if there's a distance requirement, let's say, between the house and the bushes, sort of a clearance. So just, again, building code compliance. You'd have to-
Yeah, you will comply with whatever
Yeah.
is there, but Mr. Linson indicated it was very well screened.
I mean, it's apparent from that photograph, I would agree.
There are two other units there. They're both air conditioners, correct?
Correct.
Okay. There is a third item that's covered against the wall. Do we know what that is? Is that something that's just a storage?
That's
or
a
is that-
storage. That's just a storage unit. Yeah, where we keep seats for the yard. It's not a actual
Okay,
piece
I
of equipment.
I saw it was covered, et cetera,
Yeah.
didn't know what it was.
Yeah, it's just for debris. and
So I would say that all three units will have to meet the, if that's acceptable, as a condition. There's the two air conditioners as well
Right.
as the,
They're also within the 10 feet, right? So
I'm sorry?
they're also within the 10 feet of the property line, or
Right.
less than 10 feet.
Yeah, they're like in a row.
Yeah.
But they have a variance for those already, the other two?
I don't know.
I didn't
Well,
see that.
the reason just to clarify, the generator is it's bigger, and it's harder to put it right against the house. An AC unit, you can put it right against the house. The generator would need to be slightly off to respect, I believe it's a 10 feet distance with any window. So it'd be slightly off the house. So that's what brings it closer to the plot limit.
Did you install those air conditioning
No.
units? They were there when you bought
They
the
were
house,
there.
correct?
Yeah.
So it's in one of the staff comments, but is it your testimony that your house is 9 feet from the property line so that it is physically impossible to put a generator 10 feet from the property line?
My understanding is the generator itself would be within 5 feet. So it's not that the house itself that I would have to confirm back.
Okay, if that was in the zoning officer's comments.
Okay. All right,
So,
well,
so that it was, would be physically, if you put it
It
10
is
feet from the
physically-
property line, would be inside your house?
It'd be inside the house, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you had any conversation about this with your next-door neighbor at, I think it's 7 Blair?
Yes, he recommended the contractor, he's got one exactly on the other side of that
Okay.
tree line. and
So it is okay with them that this is, I mean, the fact that they're not here suggests that they're not going to speak in opposition, at least. Okay.
Yeah, it's less than formal, but I've definitely had the direct conversation with them, yes.
So there's actually another issue I want to bring up, and I discussed with Mr. Ball earlier. The requirement in the code and in our ordinance and the UCC is that generator cannot be within 5 feet of windows and doors. And this generator is much closer than 5 feet to their windows on that side of the house. So I think that's a more serious problem than the 10-foot setback. So Andy, I don't know if you want to address how we deal with that.
I thought I heard that you mentioned you were gonna locate it away from the windows, but
Correct.
what is the distance that you're proposing the generator from the closest window or door?
It'd be more, again, the generator installer, that's what he was most focused on, is the distance to the window.
So it will be located at least 5 feet
Yes.
from any window
Yeah.
or door?
Yeah.
Because I was by there this afternoon, and I can't imagine where that would be
Yeah.
more than 5 feet from a window.
Do you
There-
have
there
a
were- there
photo
were
of
basement
the back
windows
of the
there,
house?
there were other windows above.
Yeah, like the basement window is right here, right? Sorry.
There's one on the side of the house though, too, on where the hedges, where the generator's gonna go.
And the generator would come right here. And to your point, we need to move the shrubs, right, to bring it a little closer to respect the distance with the window above.
I just
Are
don't-
there windows on the back side of the house?
There are, but they're further away.
So I guess I'll take your word for it. I'm looking at a picture I took today, and there's a window, there's a basement window, maybe that's 5 feet. There's another window above it, which is closer to which
At the
I
end of
didn't
the
have a
house.
yardstick with me, I didn't measure it, but my thinking was it's probably closer than 5 feet, but I may be
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I'm happy to put it in the specification that
Yeah.
it must be with it,
Okay.
because that's how we solve for the location. That's
Okay.
why we're asking for the
Just be
variance.
aware that you won't get a building permit. Even if we were to grant a variance for the location tonight, as a matter of building code requirements, you won't get a permit if it's located any closer, so you have to meet that
Yeah, totally
distance.
understand.
I was also wondering about, fire hazard, how, I don't know if it says in here, how far does that unit have to be from, you have some pretty, established arborvitae in the back there it's a really narrow plot that you're putting it in. I mean, I was able to walk past it, but it's probably gonna be like 3 feet from the trees. Is that also, like, it may be fine with the fire code relative to the house, but what about the unit itself that you're putting in?
We discussed that briefly with the contractor. Their argument is that there's no real ignition unless it's inside. So all of it is happening inside. So unless there's like some massive blow up of the unit, which would happen with any like generator, it's natural gas, the distance doesn't really impact at that point.
And then, is this going to be put on a generator pad? or is it just being put like
No,
on the
yes,
ground?
yes.
So, I think that just to be clear, you need to have what your pad size is on this. We don't have that, so for your, like your building area, the generator pad would count in that, I think, or it counts in some of the calculations. Anyway, just from a future zoning perspective, that if you are putting in impervious cover, it's not captured on this, what you put in here, so I think those numbers would have to be, you know, you'd have to show that there's some impervious cover, just so that next time, if there's something else, somebody says, oh, well, you already had 15 feet, so you're, whatever it is, 300 square feet de minimis, right? Then you're only up for 285 if you come in for a variance for an addition or something like that without requiring stormwater management. Right, there's no, I just don't see that, the same with the.
Probably gonna be 4 to 5 square
Right, well, but the same with the air conditioning units that are not on the survey, right? So those are all, I'm just saying that all that should be, it should be correctly reflected in terms of what the square footage is for that. It sounds like a small amount, but, you know, it's 3 things, so.
I'm sure your surveyor can update your drawing with
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
drawing was done in, what, 20?
unit footprints.
A while ago. If
Yeah,
I
I mean, I'm
remember correctly.
surprised that the air conditioners aren't on there,
20
since this was done in
22.
2022. So normally those would be on there.
Just out of curiosity on the survey, where you have the proposed location, it sounds like it's actually gonna be pushed a little bit farther out towards the,
Yeah, I mean, again, I didn't see the actual, but when we
based on where
were,
it is, but the window's. gonna
yeah, it might be
a little
slightly
where-
off to respect the window rule, for sure, yes.
Great.
Carl, did you have anything?
Engineering, we're fine, it's less than 300 square feet. Stormwater isn't required for this, so we're okay from the engineering side.
Thank you.
Any other board member comments? Questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none. At this point, then, we'll go to any comments from the public. Anybody want to tell us what they think about this? Seeing none, is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion?
No, thank you thank you for being here and handling this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we go into executive session, do we have any conditions and how many votes?
All right, so it's 4 votes to approve because it's only a variance that we're talking about. There's no engineering memo, so we don't have our usual compliance with conditions in the board engineer's memorandum. The one thing that we discussed was potentially updating those impervious coverage figures. And would the board like to see updated impervious coverage figures being submitted to the zoning officer for review and approval?
Would it be sufficient to get them in time for the resolution and have them in the resolution?
Normally.
How would we, I mean, I just don't know what normal
Normally, that's
procedure.
tougher to enforce.
Okay. If with the zoning officers, the easier enforcement
Okay,
then.
so is that acceptable? Just, you'll ensure that any additional impervious coverage as a result of the generator and the air conditioning units that you have on the property, you'll just confirm those figures with the zoning officer so that the city has an accurate record.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
That's all I got.
Okay. Who would like to kick it off? Nobody? Okay, go ahead.
I can certainly support this application. I think with the existing hardship, the fact that the HVAC units were there when you purchased the property, the screening is more than adequate. And even the neighbor on that side, the home isn't close to the property line. We have a couple of HVAC units, I think, on that side as well. So I think it's worth.
Yeah, I think my concern would have been that the generators can be a little loud, like my neighbor has one, and it, you know, goes off and tests every week. However, your neighbor has the exact same generator that you're putting in on the, like, opposite side of their house, so I guess that sort of will balance out. So it seems like it's less of a concern there, since they're doing the same thing.
And I too can support this. I mean, testimony has established that it is physically impossible to meet the distance requirements on that side of the house. And any other location would be visible from Cromwell Parkway, which is a slightly more major road than is that Dorset or Blair.
Dorset.
So this in fact benefits the neighborhood by not being visible.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, I think what we have here is, I don't see any negatives to this. I mean, that's one of the things we have to look at, is what are the negatives, and I don't see this affecting the neighborhood in any negative way at all. I see it as a positive for the family that's there, that won't be without whatever it is that they may need during what unfortunately are becoming more and more power outages than we would like. So based upon everything I've heard so far, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
May we have a roll call?
Is Jay voting? Can he?
Oh, you know what? No,
Yeah.
he's not
No.
voting.
Let's
Sorry.
get a new.
Oh, I'm
motion.
sorry, I did not know
I'll
that.
second.
Well, we need a new motion.
The motion.
Jay made the motion, right?
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay,
So
somebody
moved.
has to make the
thank
motion.
you.
Okay,
All right.
Scott,
okay. Then I'll still second.
Yes. Vice Chairman Loiketz,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Zahn,
Yes.
Mr. Kieran,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
Chairman Steiner.
yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The resolution should be on our agenda within a month. Okay, we are going to go to the Beacon Hill Club, and I believe there are a number of people that are recusing themselves.
Yes.
Scott's going, Tom Yuko's going. Are you leaving us too?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, boy.
so we are left with
6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we have a full board for you, so just wanted to make sure we did with everybody who recused themselves. We will turn it over to the attorney. Did anybody have to read transcripts that's left here in these 7?
Nope. It was
Okay.
people who were.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we have everybody signed on properly. And I will turn it over to Beacon Hill's attorney.
All right. Good evening, Hillary Alls from Dempsey and Sheehan, representing the applicant Beacon Hill Club, located at 250 Hobart Avenue, Block 2203, Lot 1 in the R43 zone. I just wanted to do a quick recap of the application. The applicant seeks approval for improvements to their lower campus, specifically to update, modernize, repair, and improve the carriage house, which had some minor updates in the 90s. Pat's House, which is a pre-existing non-conforming accessory structure, and to reconfigure the upper and lower parking areas, which will result in additional off-street parking spaces on site, ADA compliant spaces, an electrical vehicle charging station, as well as improved site circulation. Beacon Hill Club is requesting preliminary and final major site plan and conditional use approval and variances for lot coverage for an additional 0.65%, so less than 1%. Disturbance of steep slopes for 2.12% of the steep slopes on site. Off-street parking spaces for 9 spaces rather than the 18 required. And for an increase of the pre-existing nonconformities at Pat's House to expand the second story with an increase in height of 8.5 feet for approximately 75% of the building, and for an additional 55 square feet of ground floor area. At the last hearing, the board heard from Beacon Hill Club's president, and tonight the presentation will continue with the engineer Bill Scott, the architect Brian Cooney, traffic engineer Craig Paragoy, landscape architect Benjamin Heller, and we'll wrap up with the planner Paul Phillips. So if the board agrees, I'd like to call the first witness.
Any questions for the attorney? Seeing none, please proceed.
All right, so I'd like to call Bill Scott.
All right, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
William Scott, Scott.
Thank you. And can you briefly describe your background and experience for the board?
I'm a licensed civil engineer and a partner at Enserplan. We're an engineering firm in Bedminster, New Jersey. I obtained a Bachelor of Science degree from the Clarkson University School of Engineering. I obtained my professional engineer's license in New Jersey in 2004. I've had that license in good standing since then. I've presented multifamily, single-family subdivisions and commercial presentations before the zoning and planning boards of Summit in the past. And I've appeared before several dozen other boards in central New Jersey in the past 20 years.
And including our own relatively recently as well.
Yep.
Does the board have any questions, or would you like to accept them once again?
No questions? Please go ahead and proceed.
Thank you.
Okay, can you explain the steps you've taken to prepare to give expert testimony in this matter?
Well, I visited the site probably 12 times over the past year, so I'm very familiar with the property. I did stop in there earlier today also to refresh my memory. Our firm prepared the updated survey, which is the basis plan for the site plan that I prepared. I reviewed the architect's initial proposal for the site improvements. I pulled out the prior approval, for which that was the site engineer, and reviewed the documentation for that. I attended a number of meetings with the club membership, as well as with some of the neighbors of the site. And I also reviewed the ordinances and the city professional review memos.
Perfect. And recognizing that the site is fully developed with existing buildings, parking, and other improvements, did you prepare civil engineering plans in accordance with the requirements of applicable city ordinances and the municipal land use law?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Using sheet 3 of the plans that you prepared and that were filed with the board, can you describe the existing conditions of the site?
Sure. So sheet 3 is our existing conditions and existing parking map. And I'm going to go through the site as if you were driving into the site. First, I'll explain the property itself is 9.77 acres. It's bordered on the north, the south, and the east by roadways. We have Brantwood Drive to the north. We have the Route 24 access road to the east and Hobart Avenue to the south. To the west, the site borders lot 2, 3, and 11. And those are residential properties in the R15 and R43 zones. The site has an access off of Hobart Avenue. That's at the bottom or the south of the property as you look at our map. This is an entrance only off of Hobart, and it brings you into the parking area in front of the manor house. To the left or to the west, you'll have tennis courts. It's the main parking area for people that are entering the main entrance to the manor house, which is just above those 2 curbed islands that you see in the center of the parking lot. That area of the site is demarked as the upper campus. If you follow through the parking area, you'll see there's a driveway which goes around the east side of the manor house, behind the manor house. You'll pass another entrance and exit off of the Route 24 access ramp. That's in and out exit entrance. As you continue into the site, you're going to pass a parking area to the north, which abuts the paddle tennis courts and the paddle tennis building. And to the south, there's a smaller parking area, which is used generally by the employees of the site. The driveway continues down towards the carriage house, which is the main building of that area of the site, which is called the lower campus. There's also the hockey rink, the pool area, and there's a one-story building abutting the midpoint of the hockey rink, which is known as Pat's House. It's a warming building and a viewing building for or ice activities.
Okay, referring to the remaining plan sheets, can you describe for the board what is proposed from a civil engineering perspective?
Sure. If we can go to sheet 5, this is the sheet that's showing the proposed improvements to the site. And I'll just take you quickly through the site in the same manner. So you see we have the entrance off of Hobart that's unchanged.
Excuse me, just be a little louder.
I'm sorry. Sure, I will try. We have the entrance off of Hobart into the parking area of the Manor House. You'll remember that we had 2 curbed islands in the parking area there. What we're proposing to do is expand the parking into those curbed islands. We're also proposing to relocate the 2 non-conforming ADA spaces to create code-compliant ADA spaces with proper signage, striping, and slopes going into the building. Another minor improvement in this area is just off the corner of the Manor House. We're proposing to put in a small backup generator, a residential size backup generator. We're proposing a 42-inch screening fence around that on our plans. And when you hear from the landscape architect, you'll note that there will be additional planting screenings in that area as well. To the rear of the Manor House, as you continue along the driveway to the back, there was the employee parking area. There's an existing refuse and recycling area, which is fenced. We are proposing to add a screened gate to fully enclose that area. It's my understanding that the dumpster is emptied 3 times a week, and recycling is picked up once a week there. And then as we enter the lower campus down the main driveway towards the carriage house, we're proposing to reconstruct the entire existing parking area. We're adding new properly striped spaces, properly designed ADA spaces, signage, and a turnaround area and drop-off area. It's also proposed to add 1 EV charging space, along with proper striping for the gate off of Brantwood. And then the carriage house itself is proposed to be improved in several locations. You'll hear from the architect, but very briefly, there's an addition proposed to the front entrance. There's an expansion proposed for the maintenance and storage area on the ground floor level. There's a pool roof deck, which will be added, and a patio created below. There's an expansion of the existing kitchen, and there's a very small proposed expansion of the kiddie pool, just to add a little more width to the concrete surface around the pool. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there's a small building by the hockey rink, Pat's House. This building is currently a pre-existing non-conforming structure as far as the height and the number of stories to this building. A minor variance is required because we're proposing to add 55 square feet to the floor area of this building. Essentially, you'll hear from the architect, but it's essentially a reconfiguration of the windows. It's also proposed to add an enclosed space on the existing rooftop deck and a viewing area on the rooftop deck. And since we're expanding this previously non-conforming building, there would be a variance required for the stories and height as well. The patio around Pat's house would be slightly reconfigured just so the new landings and staircases will match in, and a slight reconfiguration of the fencing in that area. Just to the west of the carriage house, we're proposing to add an enclosure This will be composed of solid masonry walls on 3 sides and a wooden fenced gate at the access point. And this enclosure would be for the new upgraded chiller equipment, generator, and one other thing. Condenser, I'm sorry. So this equipment will be completely visually screened. It'll be within the walled enclosure. The equipment itself will be an upgrade. It'll be quieter. It'll be more environmentally friendly than what is existing today. To the west of the enclosure, we're proposing a pedestrian sidewalk and a staircase. It's also proposed to control the access from the new drop-off area up to the pool area and to the hockey areas. And then paralleling this sidewalk is a path which is proposed to provide access for maintenance vehicles. This is not a roadway for full-size vehicles. It's a path that's intended for vehicles on the scale of a golf cart that they use just for the maintenance people to get around the site. So overall, the parking and circulation throughout the site should be improved, both for vehicles and for pedestrians. On the upper campus, new parking is proposed, proper striping, crosswalks are proposed, new ADA compliant spaces are proposed to allow safe and convenient access to the building. At the middle parking area behind the manor house, there are existing parking areas which are unstriped. Those are used by employees. There's 3 existing parallel spaces on the roadway itself, which are unstriped. We're not proposing any improvements or changes to these these features, as they tend to work well and are seldom used.
Can I just interrupt you quickly? Can you show the location of the tire stops?
Oh,
in
I'm
the
sorry.
Upper parking area.
So there's an area of the...
You're going to have to use a microphone. Take the handheld.
There's also the handheld.
I'll try. So we have these 3 spaces at the upper parking lot. They abut a steep slope, so we're proposing at the recommendation of the planner to add precast wheel stops to those spaces.
And you agree to provide a detail of those, right?
Yes.
Thanks.
So again, the main parking area of the carriage house will be reconfigured. We're widening the aisle width to provide proper backup spaces for the vehicles. We're providing proper striping for the spaces. We're providing proper emergency access striping to the gate off of Brantwood. Again, code compliant ADA spaces. The ADA spaces will allow access to the sidewalk to the building. The sidewalk is properly sloped for wheelchair access. Once in the building, there's wheelchair access to a elevator, which will take people to the 2nd floor if they desire. We're proposing a turnaround area for passenger vehicles, and this will eliminate the current confusion of trying to exit the site as people are making K-turns and backing out in awkward maneuvers to try to figure out their exit path through that site. Pedestrian access from the parking area to the hockey rink and the pool are better controlled by sidewalks and painted crosswalks. I wanted to point out on our plan, we are stating that the ordinance requires 18 new parking spaces rather. I'm sorry, the ordinance does require that we need 18 parking spaces. 17 is shown on our plan, and this was a result of a rounding error that was taken in the wrong direction. So that will be corrected on any prior or coming iterations of the plan. The net addition of parking spaces proposed, including the bonus space for the EV charging station, is 9 spaces. And you'll hear more detailed testimony from our traffic expert, should you desire, on parking and circulation throughout the site. There is an existing propane tank on the site. This tank was installed in 1978. It predates the city 1999 ordinance prohibiting tanks of this nature. The tank is a pre-existing nonconformity. No changes are proposed to the tank, although we are proposing a screening fence on 2 sides to block the view from the adjoining properties. If we could switch to sheet 4. So sheet 4 is an exhibit which depicts the impervious surfaces on the site. The gray shading exists, the gray shading represents existing impervious surfaces. The green indicates a new pervious or grass surface, so it's a change from impervious to pervious. And the blue indicates a new impervious surface. The existing impervious cover on the site is 194,593 square feet, which represents 45.72%, and this was approved at the past application on this site. The proposed addition of impervious surface is 2,755 square feet, which represents a change, an increase of 0.65%, less than 1% of the impervious on the site. And this would bring the variance relief required up to 46.37%. And then I would point out, as you see the coloration between the blue and the green throughout the site, combined with the change of the topography on the site, the buildings on the site, and the screening plantings throughout the site, it will be very difficult for anyone to notice the change of impervious coverage from any given point as they view the site. Runoff from the impervious surfaces is proposed to be directed to a properly sized drywall system. We'll go to sheet 8, which shows the proposed lighting on the site. So we are proposing 3 new pole-mounted lights on the reconstructed carriage house parking area. You see them here by the movement of the cursor. Those pole-mounted lights comply with the 15-foot height restriction. They all are proposed to have house-side shields. And they are all rated dark sky compliant by the manufacturer. And they are all at a temperature of 3,000 Kelvin, temperature rating, color rating, which complies with the city ordinance. We're proposing some bollard-style lighting along the sidewalks, low-intensity lighting. And then there is some additional lantern-style lighting proposed on the building that you'll hear about from the architect. And if we can go to sheet 2 of my plan, that's the steep slope plan. We do have a steep slope variance proposed.
I'm sorry, before you go on, can you go over this lighting? Because you said page 8, but I actually have
It's actually page 9.
page 9.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I have 2 page 9s.
Presentation.
Yeah.
It's the first page 9. So again, we have the reconstruction of the parking area in the carriage house. So we have 1 pole-mounted light here, here, and 1 here to the left of the turnaround area. And again, they fully comply with the city lighting ordinances. And then along the walkway that comes up the side of the building here, abutting the screening for the chiller and condenser, we have bollard style lighting, very low intensity, just to light the sidewalk. And then along the rear of the building and the front of the building, we're proposing some lantern style lighting, like a residential lantern style. And the architect has some information on that for you.
So,
Are you the person we should ask about when those lights will go on and off? Or should that be somebody else?
I don't have an answer for you for that.
The architect.
Another witness,
Yes.
okay.
So sheet 2, it shows the steep slope information. So you'll see areas that are indicated on the screen in pink. Those are existing steep slope areas that exceed 15%. And you can see that approximately 30% of the property is currently steep slopes. There's an overall grade change on the property of 51 feet. And we're proposing to disturb 2,709 square feet of the steep slopes. That represents just over 2% of the steep slopes on the site, and it represents an area of less than 0.5% of the lot area. I feel the disturbance proposed is reasonable. It can be achieved, still while meeting the purpose of the steep slope ordinance. We will have an approved soil erosion and sediment control plan enacted for the project. Grading will not cause erosion or unstable runoff conditions. We are proposing protective measures such as silt fencing, stone tracking pads, and inlet protection. Again, the stormwater runoff is controlled, directed to a dry well. All the existing runoff patterns are maintained. Therefore, I feel the steep slope disturbance in the amount proposed can be accomplished without affecting any of the neighboring properties, the health and safety, or the welfare of the community. I think that brings us just to the stormwater control is what I have left for you. So within the new reconstructed parking area, under the turnaround area, we're proposing to add a below-grade dry well storm sewer chamber. This is proposed to accommodate the runoff from the new impervious surfaces. It was oversized by approximately 34%. And the manner in which this will function is there's inlets throughout the site which collect and direct the stormwater from the site to this area. All of the stormwater from the site exits an existing inlet at the north end of the turnaround area. So it's proposed to intercept this water with our drywall system, which will add an incremental storage for all the runoff from the site. Any water that bypasses the system will continue on its natural path to the exit inlet from the site.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to review the engineer's report? And if so, can you provide any comments to the board with regard to that report that you haven't already covered in your testimony?
Sure. I did review it, and we have no problems complying with the conditions within the engineer's report. If there's any specific question, I'd be happy to try to field it.
Okay, what about the comments with regard, in the administrative comments made by the fire chief and the environmental commission?
So the fire chief had asked that a fire department connection be added, and of course, we'll comply with that. It's a safety issue, and, you know, we'll gladly do that. The Environmental Commission had asked if we had considered the use of permeable pavers throughout the site. It was something that we had looked at in some of the maintenance path areas. I didn't feel it was appropriate for the parking area reconstruction itself. This is be an area which is going to be plowed, sanded, and salted, and these activities tend to degrade the effectiveness of that over time. So currently, we are not proposing any of those measures.
Excellent, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, let's go ahead and start with our experts. Carl?
Thank you, Chairman. You went over pretty much everything in our report, which is good. A few questions here and there. The soil logs, before you dig for your seepage pits, we'll need a copy of the soil logs. Make sure the soil's good. If for whatever reason the soil is not good in that area where they're proposing, they would either have to relocate the seepage pit somewhere else on site, or possibly come up with an alternative design for a shallower system or something like that to handle the volume of water. As far as the overflow for the pipe that's leaving over the dry well, what's going on with that? How are you doing the overflow?
Essentially, it's a continuous pipe that traverses directly across the top of the dry well and has a opening on the bottom. So it'll let water in. As the dry well becomes full, that pipe just becomes the conduit for the remaining water to go bypass to the inlet,
So it's going to the next inlet.
right?
Okay.
Which is the existing
The existing one.
inlet out of the site, yep.
Understood. And then, so you already received soil conservation approval for your prior version, so you're
Yeah,
going
we'll-
back for.
We'll have to
amending
update that, sure.
Yeah, amended version. So we'll need that before breaking ground. The pathway, the golf cart pathway, are you gonna be using it for maintenance vehicles too? If so, what size?
Again, they're small, like I said, golf cart sized vehicles. They're not running.
Gator trucks?
Yeah, the gators. They're not running pickup trucks throughout the site.
Okay.
It's, you know, maintenance, two guys on a maintenance gator with a basket on the back.
And then the emergency access gate on the Brentwood, can you give I don't know if you're the right person for this, but a little detail with that as far as access, who has access? Is it only being used for emergency situations, or are we dealing with deliveries, employee entrance and exits from there, the maintenance vehicles coming in and out? What's
The intent is that is an emergency access. We are proposing signage for that. I'm trying to find the language that we are proposing to add to the sign.
I believe it's gonna say authorized use only, no parking is allowed. And that's emergency access only.
All right, thank you. And then for the garbage pickup and recycling, you said 3 times a week for garbage, 1 for recycling,
Yes,
guessing early mornings?
I don't have a time on it, no.
I don't know if that's our purview here, but,
Don't normally address it unless there's a particular condition that's proposed.
okay. But you're looking at 3 times a week for garbage, 1 time for recycling.
Right.
And then any comments for the trees that are being removed, I refer the board to the city forester's report for that.
So the landscape architect will testify to that.
Thanks. And that's really it for engineering.
Okay. Tom?
Just a few quick ones, Mr. Chairman. You answered most of my questions, so thank you for that. Not to harp on the propane tank, but is it shown on the current iteration of the plan?
It is.
The text is tiny, I just generators there.
The propane tank is to the north of the paddleball court, the
So that's
most easternmost.
to remain not proposed to be replaced.
Right.
Okay, so-
They're just adding a fence near it, right?
A two-sided fence.
There's
Currently
going to have more screening.
Is the testimony.
Yeah.
As far as signage goes, you mentioned a number of types of new signage indicating people park in certain places. Can you just give an overview of, again, of those types of signs? And more specifically, if there are any new signs that are specific to the club as far as sign identification or branding?
No,
So mostly traffic
right.
signs. And then finally, more of an engineering issue, but we just had a question about the 8 unstriped parking spaces. There's 5 in one and 3 in another. I guess if you're okay with it, I'm not gonna get into that. So. It's an existing condition.
They're existing on stripe now.
Okay.
We didn't comment on it because it is existing. If they were looking to address it, improve upon it, then, you know, maybe they would look to reconfigure that. I don't know what your intentions are, but I'm assuming it's
At this
remain
time,
as
it's,
is.
yeah, remain as is.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Questions from the board?
I have a few questions, and I'm not sure if you're the right person to ask. So you said that you visited the property over 12 times over the course of how long, did you say? Was it
About the last year or so.
a year? So you've seen like seasonal activities?
Yes.
At the club? Can you address, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure if you're the right person, the traffic flow over to where it basically goes with is the turnarounds and the drop-off area? I'm just, what is that drop-off area mostly going to be used for? Is it, like, you know, the pool in the summer, the ice rink in the winter?
I think the intent is primarily for winter use, but it also is going to add an appropriate turnaround area for that parking lot itself. Currently, it's very awkward. It's almost striped in a one-way, but the wrong way configuration. So the cars have a hard time backing out. So we're going to provide the proper width. And then if the car would like to turn around and come out facing forward, they can do that rather than turning out.
So right now, what's the drop-off like, if there's no turnaround? If there's no
Right now,
drop-off area?
I mean, from what my understanding is, that they try to park if they can, or
Well,
if,
sorry, I'm just gonna, there is an existing turnaround, it's just not well-designed.
it's an expanse of pavement.
And your
There.
parking person, I can assume, would.
Traffic engineer will testify to this,
Traffic
yeah.
engineer will
Okay. I'll
discuss this
have
further, I
questions
think,
for-
or would probably could answer your question
Okay, thank you.
better.
I have some questions about the stormwater. So, you mentioned something about the prior approval. It was about a little over 1,600, under 1,700 square feet of impervious cover in the late 90s or like early 2000. So there's an existing drywall for that. Is there any other stormwater management on site? Any other dry wells or anything like that?
The last site plan, I don't know the year, but that was the addition to the manor house. We did propose a dry well behind the manor house, and in that particular site improvement, not all of the proposed impervious surfaces were constructed. So actually what we have is a very oversized dry well for the work that was done behind the manor house. We also did a storm sewer improvement reconstruction, I'm gonna guess 10 years ago, and we added a dry well. Yeah, it's within that grassed area to the rear of the manor house at the bottom of the slope there.
So how much of your impervious cover are you managing the stormwater runoff on site as opposed to a storm sewer right now? Because that's kind of not, I'm not clear on that. I see what you're adding, and I see that you had six, but I also see that, and on sheet 1, I think there's an error. It says that zoning allows in R43 30% impervious cover, but it's actually 15%. So the reason I'm asking that question is that, you know, existing conditions are already 45.72% impervious cover. And what I see, you know, when you come up, so I know it sounds like you're just adding a little bit and you're managing the part that you're adding, but I see a huge property with a lot of impervious cover. When you drive up off of Hobart, all of that stormwater basically runs down, and it doesn't get managed on the bottom of the property. It runs off the property onto the service road for 24. So there's not one storm catch basin or drain or anything from, there's one you show, well, I don't know if you can see it on that drawing, but it says there's one by the house, you know, the main, basically the main lodge house up in the top right, left corner of the parking lot. But that's actually not capturing most of the stormwater and runoff that's coming there. So I'm trying to understand where, you know, how much of your stormwater is actually being managed on site, because it is a really big property and that's a lot of runoff.
So the way that the runoff from the site currently functions is there's essentially a high point at the site which runs generally around the front parking area and this driveway which goes back out to Hobart. So you have a drainage area which drains uncontrolled to the south through the wooded area here down towards the tennis courts. It's then captured in storm sewer inlets that are at the concrete curb gutter line at the intersection of Morris Essex and Hobart. That's not the main portion of the site, certainly. Estimating 75 to 80% of the site drains to the northwest. That's generally overland drainage. All of the roof gutters are piped to a series of inlets that are throughout the site. All of the runoff from the hockey rink, the building, most of the developed areas, travels via piping to an inlet, which is in the area we're proposing the turnaround. And there it enters the storm sewer system of Brantwood Drive.
You have a storm water management system on Brantwood Drive? Is that? I
A
didn't-
storm
Just
source.
to the storm sewer?
Storm
Okay.
sewer system.
So most of the runoff is just going to the storm sewer, the currently, right? Because there are 4 drains on the, when you're coming out of the hockey rink, the top, on
Yeah,
the,
there's this-
facing the hill. On the right-hand side, you have like 4 storm drains, but that's not necessarily capturing all the runoff either in a sheet flow like condition?
Most of the site sheet flows or is piped into the storm sewer system, but about 80% of the runoff from the site enters the existing inlet. That's at right here at the northern point of the turnaround area. And there it enters an existing pipe where it goes into the storm sewer system for Brantwood Drive.
And has there been any, like, overflow of that system that you're aware of in storm events, or do you know?
I don't know. I'm not aware. I mean, I've done 3 projects on the site. We've added 3 dry wells each time. Each time they've been oversized for what was required.
Yeah.
So are those dry wells from previous projects on this plan?
So on sheet 2, which is the steep slope plan, you'll see some of the piping throughout the site, but there's an inlet here, which was an inlet. We converted that to a dry well. And then just off of the patio to the back of the manor house, we added another dry well.
But they're not on plan.
The one is, The other one's not.
Well, it's an inlet then, the one that's at, what is that, 396.84? Is that what you're,
Yeah,
there's drywall there?
it's an inlet, but it also is functioning as a drywall. It was converted from an inlet into a drywall tank with stone.
Okay. And I have another question about, can you just clarify about the parking? You mentioned something about how 18 spaces would be required. And I'm not sure, I think I misunderstood, because I'm looking at the zoning, it says 149 spaces are required. You have 74, and you're proposing 83, so adding 9, but I wasn't following on the 18 with that.
Yeah, we had shown on the plan that 18 additional, or 17 additional spaces were required. I had a rounding error. It's 18, not 17.
So why I'm not understanding why 17 versus 18 are required when what it actually is required is 149, right, for the site?
So if I could just interrupt, the traffic engineer will explain it, but there was a prior approval that granted, I believe it's 74 spaces, a variance for 74 spaces, which this board felt was adequate for the site. So it's only anything above that is related to these specific improvements. So these improvements require 18 spaces.
Got it,
And we're
okay.
providing 9.
Okay.
Couple questions. So the new proposed water management system in the lower lot,
Yes.
what's the I mean, this is probably your engineer's purview than mine, but what's the capacity of that, and what is it collecting? And you're saying it's oversized, but oversized compared to what?
So the way the ordinance is written is that we need to collect 3 inches of runoff off of the new impervious surfaces. So we have a building expansion. We have the 700 square feet of additional impervious surface. We run the calculations out. With the 3 inches, we come up with the volume. Not sure if I can read it off of here. Can we just move up a bit? So here's our capacity calculations. So the overall requirement was the 689 cubic feet of runoff storage. Our dry well's providing 928. So about a third. And again, the storm sewer, we are adding inlets throughout the developed portion of the site that we're reconstructing, and we're proposing to capture the roof drains, and we're piping that into the dry well directly.
And that's well within that calculation, obviously.
Yes.
And then this is gonna be a silly question, but I gotta ask it anyway. In the roundabout, you're putting a new storage system, the underground storage. Is that gonna be designed to hold heavy apparatus or heavy equipment?
Yes, it'll be traffic rated.
Okay.
If you are, with the parking, you're only covering what you need to above a prior approval. How does that relate to drainage? Are you only handling that which you need to handle because of what you're adding? Or is there a possibility that this entire piece of property could be properly drained through this project so that there won't be any problems from this thing over here or that over here, that we will have a completely controlled drainage on the Beacon Hill Club?
Well, most of the drainage from this site, as I said, it finds its way to that inlet and enters the storm sewer system of Brantwood. The City of Summit Engineering Department publishes a list of drainage problem areas where they have a storm sewer system on their city property where they have found that there's not sufficient capacity. I'm not aware that this is on that list, so this site has been here for 50-some-odd years. It's been functioning correctly.
70 years.
70?
Yep.
And each time we've modified it, we've provided incrementally additional storage to what the ordinance requires us to do.
I don't know if the city engineer wants to weigh in on this.
Oh, I'm not the city engineer.
Well, the
So-
board
I
engineer.
mean, it's our
Board
consulting engineer. Do you have?
So as far as this go, I would agree with the statement that, as the improvements are done, you have been addressing whatever improvements are made to that particular area. In this case, you're handling the, increase in impervious area, the net change. Let's call it that, the net change. So, we reviewed the calcs, we agree with the calcs that were, the calculations that were provided. There's substantial room in there, and there's excess in there for additional storage of the runoff. So as far as the stormwater goes, we feel adequate for what's being designed here.
For what they're adding?
For what they're adding.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And
How do we analyze the whole project, the whole property? Are we, do we have any authority to do that?
no, because.
I figured I was gonna get that answer from here.
Yeah. So our code specifically requires that what they have to address cumulative increase in impervious area of at least 300 square feet. That 300 square feet, per the ordinance, is measured as of the date of passage of this ordinance. And the code itself doesn't say what the date was, but in running that question by Krista quite some time ago, I believe it was approximately 1993. Don't quote me on that, but, so that's the date that we're focused on, and it sounds, per the testimony, that they've been addressing any impervious coverage increases with all these projects since 1993. So we can't go back to the beginning of time and ask them to address more stormwater. That's the requirement that we're mandated by under the code.
Okay, annual report time. Okay.
I've got a couple of questions in two different areas. One, sorry, still on stormwater.
Okay.
I understand you probably were not on site on August 18th when we received, take your pick, 4 or 5 inches of rain in 2 hours. Is there somebody on the team who can testify as to how that stormwater was handled? Or how the site handled the stormwater? I believe the manager spoke the last time.
And it could be,
So, right, he's not, the general manager is not here tonight. It's just the president of the club, but if he
Okay.
wasn't on site, then he couldn't testify to that.
Okay. And then you had, I know there's a traffic engineer, you had also provided some testimony about parking, and I had questions there, and I just want to be sure I'm asking the right person, if it's you or the traffic engineer.
Probably the traffic engineer.
Okay, I'll hold.
But he'll be here, so if he
Yes,
has to come
exactly.
Yes,
back.
okay, okay.
We'll get an answer one way or the
Yes.
other.
Thank
You
you.
will. Okay, so there's
Any
no.
other questions? Any other questions from the board for this witness? Okay, from the public, are there questions for this witness? Please come forward, state your name, spell your last name, and your address.
Andrea Dewberry-Liu, LIU, 35 Wood Fern Road, Summit. I want to ask about the large puddle that seems to exist outside of the gate on Brantwood. If you're facing the gate, it's on the right-hand side. There always seems to be a large puddle of water there. On the right-hand side of the gate, if you're facing the gate.
As you're facing the gate going in, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
This is on the outside of the gate?
Yes,
Is it on Brantwood Drive?
yes.
Or- Right.
I haven't done any specific study of what is happening on Brantwood Drive. I know the city just reconstructed it about 18 months ago, so I'm surprised to hear that there's ponding happening there.
Has that been happening before the reconstruction and now after again?
That's probably a question for public comment and not necessarily public questions portion.
Right, well, the answer is you know nothing about it at this point. So we'll have to bring it up elsewhere.
Is the puddle in the street or on their property?
It's on the property.
It's they're within their
It's
curb
on
line.
the other side of the stone wall. So I'm assuming that
So isn't
that's
that the
still
right of way?
But it's between the curb line and the stone wall.
Yes.
Okay, if we're supposed to
So
see
I
that, we
think that
can't.
that's in the right of way, so I'm not sure that that's actually their property. Where's the Brantwood
Perhaps you could
I
look
think
into
that-
that and get back to us while this is.
We can, but it looks like it's outside of the property line,
So whose property is it?
the city of Summits.
Okay. We will bring it up. We'll ask you to ask your question under comments. Any other public questions?
Hi, I'm Leah Callahan, O apostrophe.
Your name and address.
Yes, I'm Leah Callahan, O apostrophe Callaghan. I live at 24 Brantwood.
Thank you.
Just had a question if the garbage or recycling collection times would be changing as part of this proposal, or were you just citing the times just for information?
I didn't speak to the times, only that it's occurring 3 times a week, so I'm sure there's someone else that can talk to the times and what's intended for that. I'm not aware of any changes proposed, but
There's no change proposed.
Okay. Any other questions from the public? Seeing none,
Okay.
how long do you think your next witness is?
What's the architect? So that's probably the longest one of all of them, so.
Okay, then I'm
how
going to
long do you
suggest that
think?
we take our traditional 5-minute break,
Sure.
which means that we'll be back here at 9 o'clock.
Thank you.
witness, if you would.
Yep. Brian Cooney, the architect.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Brian Cooney, Cooney.
Thank you, and can you briefly describe your background and experience for the board, please?
I have my master's in architecture from Catholic University. I've been licensed in New Jersey and New York since 2016, and I've appeared before 2 boards in the state of New Jersey, Wayne and Pompton Lakes.
Any questions from the board?
Any questions from anybody? No. We'll accept your credentials, and if you would proceed.
Yep, sure. Same question. Can you explain the steps that you've taken to prepare yourself to give expert testimony in this matter?
Sure. I've surveyed the site. I surveyed the existing buildings on the site. I've prepared the plan to see before you, the 3D renderings. I've reviewed the city ordinance, the application, and also responded to the administrative letters that were sent to our office.
And can you tell the board what was the objective of this project given to you by the applicant?
Yeah, so the main objective is to really modernize the 2 buildings that are on the site. Both of them were renovated a long time ago, 1989 for the Carriage House, and is the 90s for the Pat's House. The Carriage House, really at this point in time, is it's at the end of its useful life with most of the portions of the building. The roof, the HVAC system, the windows, the kitchen, the hockey chiller was just replaced, but most of the main spaces are all kind of tired and old, and they were renovated in 1989. So the main objective was to bring it into the 21st century. It was to make it more ADA accessible, and while we're doing this is to upgrade the aesthetics of the building as well. For Pat's House, the main objective was to kind of increase the visibility of hockey. It's a hockey viewing house that it's hard to see hockey out of. So to make that visibility better and change the front facade so you can see hockey better and it doesn't frost over. That was the main objective of it, of that, is to update that as well to kind of club standards these days.
Did you prepare plans to meet and address the objectives you just laid out for the board?
I did.
And can you go through those plans and describe what is existing and the proposed improvements?
Sure, and I'll go through the plans on the screens on the sides here. And you can see my cursor moving, that's what I'm pointing to. And I know Bill Scott, the civil engineer, went through the site. I just want to go through the site one more time with our colorized site plan, just to orient you. Our building is in, our 2 buildings are in the dark gray, here and here, on the lower campus. The upper campus is the main clubhouse, this portion where they're adding the ADA parking spaces and the new parking spaces. Our main focus is down here. And our new additions are the darker gray. So you could see an entry addition on the front, off the parking lot. You could see the side addition here, in the dark gray, and then a kitchen addition on the right. Then a Pat's House, to orient you, is on the middle portion of the hockey rink here in the dark gray here. Taking it through to the demolition plans. So the majority of the interior of this space is really getting reconfigured. We're keeping some spaces, but and the actual uses of them are staying the same, but we're rehabbing basically the entire building. The lower portion of the building, as it sits right now, has as you enter in here, there's a front courtyard, and as you enter in, there is an entry lobby and stairs, and an ice skating shop off of that. On the back side, there is the guest locker rooms, and Zamboni storage and maintenance are all put in one space right here, as you can see. And on the lower level, over here to the right, which is going to remain, is the pool equipment and really a large maintenance room. And on the back side of the building, it's subterranean. There's a vault here that has pump equipment for the changed hockey chiller, and this is basically what circulates all the material to keep the rink going. As we move up on the demolition plan, as you can see, I don't know if it's apparent in the screen, it's kind of small, but everything that's dashed is getting removed. We're essentially removing most of the interior partitions to allow for a new layout. On the left side of the building, there's a external egress stair, which we're removing because our egress is compliant with the new layout and it's fairly unsightly. And if you look on the left side here, here's the existing path up to the hockey rink right here. I'm scrolling on it now. And also to orient you to what's in this building, which is staying, is there's a kitchen on the right side adjacent to the patio, and that has a window open up to the side for people to get food for the pool. There's 2 windows to the pool side off the dining room next to the kitchen. There's a small bar off of that kind of serves this whole space. There's a central atrium type lobby, and then the locker rooms are on the left side. Now, moving through the building, one of the main objectives of this was also to upgrade the ADA pathway through the building. We want people to be able to get upstairs because the topography of the site doesn't really allow for a full ramp to get up to the hockey rink. It's not compliant, it's very steep, so we want to make a path and egress path from the downstairs lower lobby up through the building and out through the back of the building to the pool. So as you enter in, this is the new entry addition. It's only an upper story, so it creates a covered entryway for people to come in. Right now, the current entry is a little understated, and we wanted to create a real sense of entrance to the building. We also wanted to keep the same scale of the building as well, so we didn't want to go above the ridge line. We wanted to keep with the aesthetics of the building. So as you come in, this is your entryway up, and the skate shop still exists right off the lobby. The pool equipment room is all staying as is, except for some food storage, which we're walling off. There's storage off the back side of the lobby for general use. The Zamboni storage is going to stay here. It's a parking space for the Zamboni machine. Right now, this was all maintenance facility, and really a big portion of this addition, this whole bottom portion of the new addition is an upgraded maintenance facility. Now that they have this larger space, this courtyard right here where currently you see these 3 arrows, this is the driveway where they have to house things out there. They have to perform maintenance out here. Now they can cover everything and close it inside. They can kind of clean up the operation and have more space for themselves. The guest locker rooms, I don't know if you can see the small key plan here, but the roundabout is to the upper left on the plan for drop-off of guests. So a guest would be dropped off, and then they would come into these 2 locker rooms here for either hockey or pool for swim meets. The other thing that Bill Scott also testified to was the relocated chiller. You can see here, this is the new chiller location on the left side of the building. This is screened in the front with a fence and gates, and this is in the backside. It's essentially not completely subterranean, but it's within the slope, so it's covered from view. The electrical vault is also staying in the subterranean vault is staying in the backside. As you move up, so imagine you're in your ADA pathway. You come up the elevator, and you can access the pool and skating rink through this hallway and out this door. There's a 1-foot change from the pool surface to the actual building floor, so it's 2 steps down. So to make it ADA accessible with the landscape, we found a pathway through the building, if you can see in the green, and out here, so you can either go to the ice rink or to the pool with wheelchair accessibility. As you arrive in this lobby, the new addition in the front, just give you some square footages here. It's 640 square feet. It's a new living room space, so it'd be additional pre-function space for the dining room, or it's usable for people to use as a lounge. The new addition on the left side, as you go through, it houses on the upper floor employee offices for both hockey and pool. It has a multi-purpose room that would be used for camp, it would be used for referees. It has a lot of uses for between the seasons. We have ADA accessible bathrooms and 2 ADA accessible bathrooms, electrical room, storage. So a lot of updated amenities for the space which don't exist right now. The staff that works there eat their lunch essentially in the kitchen, so we're giving them space for that in the office and the multipurpose room.
As well as family changing rooms, right?
That's right, that's correct. Now, as you can go through the north side of the building where we had the locker rooms previously, we have a new layout which has women's and men's with new ADA accessible showers. We have the appropriate amount of toilets for this amount of people, and new lockers, just a complete interior refresh of the space. As we move into the dining room and the bar is expanded to have this L-shaped bar, and it's also has an expanded 320 square foot kitchen. So now the kitchen that exists now is inadequate to really feed the amount of people or cook the amount of food for the space. Now can actually feed the amount of people here. They would be able to. And they'd be able to have full service down here, similar to what they have now, but now the kitchen's adequate. So renovated dining room space, which now the 2 windows that were existing, we are connecting to a covered patio on the outside. So you'd be able to connect the dining room space to the pool space in seasons where it makes sense. This is the lower part of the added pool side patio. You can see this small L here on the bottom is the actual pool itself. So there's room for chairs, and then you'd have a covered place to either eat or have refuge. The main entrance, 2 entries are, on the back side are the ADA entrance here, and then this is a covered portico entrance on this side here. Oh, and the access to the upper pool deck is here, the stairs here on the right side. So this is a roof plan of the existing structure and the new. So on the left, we have our new addition. On the front, we have our new entry addition, which is standing seam roof. All of the ridge heights are all not exceeding what's there now. We wanted to keep the same roof ridge height throughout, so we didn't change the scale of the building. The other thing that we want to remedy in the back side of the building, I don't know if you could see this dark line here, left to right of the page. It was an oversized facade, which they called the castle, which we wanted to change in scale to reduce it. It's way oversized for that portion of the building, so the roof deck adds kind of scale to the middle of the castle facade and gives this backside a better appearance from what it has now. It also adds pool decking space because the pool itself does have limited chair space as it is now, so this is another place for families to use for the pool. You can also see here this kind of diamond-shaped entry. It's also standing seam roof to match the front, and it would be an entry point to the building. Now, moving through page A7, this is looking essentially straight from Brentwood Drive, straight from the driveway. You can see the arrow here looking straight at the side of the building. Here you can see the new addition we're proposing on the right side. You can see we're keeping the same roof line of the building, and we're keeping the same materiality. That was one of the comments from the historic comments. Yes, thank you. They requested that stone be used at the bottom of the building to match the existing, to keep the character, and we're going to do that. We're going to match the stone as best we can to keep the look from the existing building. So the top would be stucco as the existing is, and as the stone in the lower portion would match as best we can. The roof, which we're now replacing all roofs because it's time for a new roof, it's leaking a bit. We're going to be replacing it with an architectural shingle roof that would give it an upgraded look. The front entry, you can see here, it's on a 45-degree angle, so kind of hard to see. Well, the next slide will be straight on. You can see on the top is the existing. You can see the kind of the smaller smaller scale, just windowed opening. Now we have covered entry point of arrival. The other thing you can see from this elevation is the air conditioning screening. So these two pointed chimneys in the back, I don't know if you can see my cursor moving, that's the oversized facade in the back side of the building, the pool side. So with the new screening, you can see it here on the left side. It blocks all the air conditioning equipment that's back behind on a flat roof. It's an existing flat roof that houses equipment now. We're reutilizing it and putting all our condensers up there and screening it with I believe a 5-foot fence to block it from view. This next page, I scroll to next page, A6. This is the new addition on the front entry. It has a stucco veneer top. The roof line and the gutter line all match. You can see we have a colonnade below which you can enter under and have cover. And it has the same floor to floor as the existing 12'8". We're keeping that. It has an existing cupola which we're keeping, and we're going to repair as best we can. So we want to keep that character of the building as well. I think that's it for this one. But really, this just shows the new entry and then rehabbing the rest, new windows and paint, and making the rest of the building look a bit better. These elevations are the pool side. So this is on the, it's a two-part elevation. So you can see the dashed rectangle. We're on the right side. So you can see that elevation I was talking about, the tall, this is just a straight facade right now. These are the two windows we are turning into doors. And this is the raised upper deck area with the covered area below. You can see the new snack bar window here on the right. And you can see an opening to the bar on the left that would open up in the warmer months, and you'd be able to sit there. This is the left side, so you can see the ADA entrance here. And you can see the slight elevation change to the pool level here. We would, behind you, you'd be able to get to the pool level from this entrance here. And this is the covered front entry point on 45-degree angle to the building right here. This view is of the side, so you can see the entrance to the new deck. So this is the kitchen addition, which has a lower pitched roof. It just covers the new 320 square foot addition, and that is over an existing basement, but there is no building above. This is fencing showing our board and board fencing we're planning on putting everywhere. Wood board and board fencing will be within the height of the ordinance with all of our fencing. Looking back here, this is the existing maintenance entrance right here. We're going to keep that, and we're going to replace the roofing. And then this fenced area is a maintenance area which will house the future generator. And it screens any items that might be stored there. We want to screen it from the neighbors. Any maintenance activity could be happening in there. This stepped wall here, this houses the new hockey chiller. So you can see the rectangle right here. It's cut into the slope side here. And we're going to have safety fencing along the edge, so it's adequately high enough to be safe by code. Moving on to the renderings. These are actually an earlier version. I just want to preface this is an earlier version of the design. The walls by the front entry have changed a little bit, but in general, it's the essence of our design. This is what it's going to look like. This is the pool side. This is a view from the back side of the pool, the tennis court side of the pool looking forward. You can see the back addition here with the seating under it, and you're able to have pool seating on the front of it as well as seating underneath. Here's the entrance into the dining room here, and then you can see the new addition on the left side. Here's the opening into the new bar area here. That concludes the carriage house portion. I'll go into Pat's house. This is the hockey viewing house. It's located midway down the hockey rink and used for a warming hut and parent viewings. Well, actually viewing any hockey that's on the rink. As you can see, the existing facade is stepped here. So I've actually seen a couple hockey games here, and you find yourself going around the windows. It's very hard to see the hockey, and it makes it challenging to follow the game. So our intention is to straighten that out to make it a much more easily viewable experience for the hockey games. There's also an upper roof deck, which is accessed through this very small spiral stair. The spiral stair is very unsafe and can only be used by one person at a time. And during larger hockey games, this area seems to be full of people and seems very unsafe. So our proposed plan is to remedy that, make it more easily accessible and more room for people to actually view and not crowd the space. Here's our new plan that we're proposing. Lower level is on the bottom, where you can see these are the portions of the facade we're infilling. This is what's causing a variance is our addition of square footage in these 1, 2, 3, 4 places. This is the only added square footage of the space, are these 4, and that is to straighten out the facade to make it more easily viewable to the ice. This space remains the same function. It's a warming hut and viewing. It's essentially a large open space, and it also has a fireplace, which we are not changing. We're keeping that as is as well. Your entry into the space is here on the left side. You can see the stair. We would have a metal stair going up, and that would access this portion up here. This is the open roof deck, which is now not accessed by a spiral staircase. It has a code compliant staircase, and then entry into an upper viewing area, which would essentially be a large upper space as well, open space as well, with a new fireplace as well. Here's a roof plan just indicating the roof deck and the roof. These are the elevations of Pat's house. So currently we're keeping the height of the lower level more or less the same within a foot, and then we're adding a level on top of it. It's causing a height variance. I'll get into the variances after I run through these elevations. That's causing a height variance. There's a width variance that we are actually not seeking anymore because of changes to the plan and the air conditioning systems. This little portion of the building, this is in the back side, the non-rink side, we are not building because we don't need for air conditioning anymore. It's not used, so we're just not building it. So we're not seeking a dimensional variance for the building. Here are views of the existing and the new. So on the right side is existing. You have an access tower with the spiral stair here, and here's the viewing area up top with the railing. Here's that stepped facade next to the ice rink, and here's a view from below. And then this is our new proposed addition with the straight facade on the bottom, keeping this line here, not going further than the existing front box bay portion of the house. And then here's a view of the stairs going up. These are a couple of views from the ice, so you can see the existing Pat's house on the right again, and the new on the left.
Okay. Using what I would ask be marked as A2 and A3, can you describe the materials and colors to be used for the proposed improvements to the buildings? A2 and A3, yeah.
Okay, A2 will be the carriage house. So A2, this is a carriage house. So our proposed materials are keeping the existing stone stucco, and the paint would be a neutral color. We're proposing a architectural wood shingle. As you can see, that's there, and a standing seam roof for the front entry portions. We're staying with more neutral colors. The stone we're picking, you can see here, there's two stones on the bottom portion of this board. On the right, or on your right, this is the existing, and on the left is the proposed stone we're gonna be placing on the new addition on the bottom. So we're trying to match it as best we can. It is over 150-year-old stone, so hard to match, but we're gonna do our best to match it to the best of our ability. This material here is it's a faux wood for the ceilings. So underneath the covered areas, we'll have it's a PVC material. That would be a wood look material for the bottom of the open areas. So front entry and the back pool addition, and you can see copper gutters or brown gutters to go around the entire facade. A3 for Pat's house, similar materials. Similar in nature, the majority of the house, of Pat's house, on the upper portion is covered by horizontal siding. And on the lower portion, we are using a brick that's gonna match the existing. So we wanna keep the character of it having a brick base, and then we're adding the siding on top. You can also see the architectural shingles there that we use for the roof.
Perfect. And can you describe for the board the proposed lighting for the project?
Oh, before he does that, could he show those to the audience?
Sure.
Because I don't think they had a chance to see any of those. Put them up so that they can be seen.
The audience, this is A3, this is Pat's house. And this is A2, which is the carriage house.
Thank you.
Describing the lighting of the new additions?
Yes,
Did you ask that?
please.
Okay, so I'll go back to the elevations to explain. Our building has lantern-style lighting at the entry points for entry lighting. These are decorative in nature, residential in nature. They match what's on campus. They're going to be kept at low wattage levels and really will be decorative. They'll be within the 3,000 Kelvin zoning limit. Fixtures of this nature are not dark sky compliant because they're not parking lot lighting. They're decorative lighting that we're going to keep at low levels. So these are really just face-mounted decorative lights is what we're proposing. So that's going to be at the entry points on the front and the back of the building. For the carriage house and for Pat's house, we have one at the, go here, the entry points up above.
Will they be controlled by a timer?
Yes. And interior lights will also be controlled by sensors and timers as well.
And can you describe the ADA accessibility?
Sure. I went through the path, but we'll do the direct path through the plans. As you enter from the ADA parking spaces right off the front gate here, you enter in through a ADA sloped walkway to the front entry, through the front doors, and you'd be able to enter in through the ADA compliant elevator. And as you get upstairs, you exit, and you can either choose to go to the dining room, or you can turn and go through this accessible walkway out and either go to the hockey side or the pool side. It's fully ADA accessible.
And this allows for direct and seamless connection with the locker rooms and dining areas as
That's
well,
correct,
right?
yeah. So the ADA pathway from the elevator connects to all ADA facilities. So bathrooms, changing rooms, anything required by ADA code, this path will connect to it.
And have you had an opportunity to review the administrative comments, and can you respond to those comments?
Yes. Do you want to go through the variances?
Sure.
Let me go through, I'll go through these first. So we went through the administrative comments. We gave our responses. The fire chief had a request for HVAC fencing access on the roof, which we will comply with. So this screening up here, we're going to provide a opening in the side for firefighters to get to that equipment if there's ever an issue. So we're complying with that. On Brentwood Ave, they requested a sprinkler connection, which we're going to comply with. They requested full sprinkler coverage for the carriage house, which we will comply with. The one that we are in discussion with them about is full coverage of Pat's house. It's not required by code at the moment. The way it's designed, we are code compliant. They requested it be fully covered. It would be an extremely hard thing to get to Pat's house just by the topography. And we're having that conversation with the fire chief, and whatever they request, we'll comply with. The construction official requested plans showing full code compliant smoke alarms, fire ratings. We're going to submit our full architectural set to them when we're done, and should comply with all those requests. Health department comments, they asked for them to be filed with the Westfield Health Department, which we've sent in. So those are under review. And then the Environmental Commission, they had comments about the permeable paving, but Bill Scott, the civil engineer, has testified to that.
And then if you want to just run through the variances.
Yeah, so the variances for, I'll find it here, for Pat's house, there is the dimensional variance I mentioned that, here we are, that we're not going to be requesting is the accessory buildings are only allowed to be 24 by 24. We're going to be over that, but the existing building's a non-conforming building. Over that, it's 21 by 56, and we will not be changing that dimension. The height is another one. It's also a existing non-conformity. Accessory structures in Summit are allowed to be 15 feet. And the existing structure itself right now is 19.2 feet to the upper roof. And our new height is going to be 8.5 feet higher than that. There was, I just want to note that in the front or in the application there, the height was listed at 33.5 feet, which I'd like to correct. That's to the ridge height is actually 30.5 feet. And the actual grade plane height per the zoning ordinance is 27.7 feet. So the actual design height is 27.7 feet to the ridge of the building, given the grade plane.
Where is that on our, where is the grade plane on this? Can you just, so we can fix it quickly while we're here?
I think it's, if you look on the drawing you're looking at now, that's number one of the civil plans. You can just see building height is what's.
Oh, okay, so
listed.
it's not
That's
on
it.
there.
Yeah.
It's a building
I
height.
think it's under accessory building structure, copy of your house. There's like a separate section, and then it talks about.
Yeah, I see for the height, but I didn't see about the grade plane, that's all. So that's not on here.
That's calculated somewhere else in his plans.
It's a grade plane, that's a carriage house, I believe, not grade plane.
I think he did it for both,
Okay.
but maybe I'm wrong. Bill would have to come back up and explain that.
It's actually 27.7 feet, so it's 30.5.
Well, no, it's 30.5, but then the grade plane where they take the average from the front and the back of the building is 27.7.
Do you want to just keep going with the
Sure.
variances?
The last variance that we did not mention is for an accessory building. The allowable stories is 1, and the existing building is 2, and we are proposing 2 as well. So we're not changing that part of the existing non-conforming.
The allowable, what was it?
The allowable stories is
Oh,
only 1
stories, okay.
for an accessory building is 1, and the existing is 2, and we're keeping it
Expanding.
expanding
Second floor.
greatly.
Just for record keeping's sake, I think there's a floor area for the accessory building.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you're right.
I know it's-
We shifted all of this around. Yes, so what's permitted thank you for reminding me, the permitted square footage is 576 square feet for an accessory building. The existing building is 1,120 square feet, and we are adding those 4 portions of slab for the new facade, and that raises our proposed square footage to 1,175 square feet.
And can you tell the board, in your opinion, as an expert in the field of architecture, if the proposed improvements will provide an aesthetic benefit as well as meet other purposes of zoning?
Yeah, the building right now needs a bit of help aesthetically, so we feel that this design will not only add front entrance aesthetics, it'll, in general, the entire building of the carriage house will look better with the new roof, paint, finishes, and the new additions are gonna keep in kind with the existing building. They're gonna keep the stone and the stucco and the look of the existing and try to match the facade as best we can. From the maintenance side, the lower portion will allow for much better functioning maintenance system down below, where a lot of times now things are out in the open, now they'll be able to be enclosed. The staff will be able to do things indoors, which they couldn't before. In general, the front facade, we believe it adds a benefit to both the front of the house, or front of that building. Let's see. The pool area is also going to be improved, but that is internal. That's club only adjacent. The lighting around the facade of the building, the lighting in general won't be on the facade of the building anymore. Right now, there's spotlights on the side of the building. That'll be improved, where the site lighting will be on posts and dark sky compliant in the parking lot instead of the facade. And any architectural lighting will be low grade. Mechanical equipment, as I mentioned, the hockey chiller and the new HVAC equipment will be environmentally friendly, much more than the current equipment right now. The proposed site improvements, it maintains the character permitted under some of its ordinance. So we want to keep the same look of the building and scale as best we could. The improvements will also be screened by significant landscaping on the Brentwood side, which our landscape engineer will review with his board. But we feel like this project will also help with the screening from that side of the project as well.
And the new mechanical equipment, will that be quieter and energy efficient as well?
Yes, all the new equipment will be energy efficient and much quieter than before. The old equipment was from the 80s and quite loud. Now it'll be up to today's standards.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, our professionals, do you have anything to?
We do have a few. Thank you for that good overview of architectural plans. I guess the first question would pertain to programming, and I know this was touched on in the first hearing, but obviously, there are certain improvements proposed in certain spaces within the carriage house and Pat's house. I don't know if it's appropriate question for you or somebody else, but again, will there be any changes to the site's programming with respect to utilization of spaces, number of people on site, number of events?
I believe that's for the traffic engineer, probably best.
Or,
Will be prepared?
Or Pascal.
He hasn't been sworn in yet, right?
he was at the last hearing.
I'm sorry?
At the last hearing.
Okay.
Pascal Lalonde, Lalonde. We expect no change in programming as a result of these upgrades.
And do you expect an increase in membership?
We don't, no.
That's not the purpose of this application, right?
It's not the purpose, it's just to improve the existing space that we have for our current members.
Okay, thank you for that. And as as far as the ice rink goes, I have in my notes that it goes from 7 AM to 10 PM
That's correct.
currently and proposed.
Yes,
And how long has it been 7 to 10 PM?
approximately 50 years.
Will the utilization increase as a result of the Pat's House?
No,
expansion?
we have no expectation of an increase in utilization.
Is the ice rink or any other part of the campus, we'll call it, can be rented for third-party utilization for non-members?
We occasionally have private events in the main house upstairs.
Or the ice rink? Are you talking about the ice rink or
In
the whole,
general,
okay.
Site-wide.
Yes, so the main house is, no changes contemplated here with the plans. I'm guessing, don't quote me on it, it's maybe 8 to 10 private events per year. We don't expect that to change.
It'll remain consistent.
It will.
That's it for, unless the board has questions while it's here.
I have one question to follow up with this. The food and beverage program that's planned at the Carriage House, what are the current hours of operations and what are proposed?
It's seasonal. At the Carriage House, so the hockey rink is a seasonal limited use facility. It's primarily used during the pool season. The hours of the Carriage House for dining during the pool season, the pool opens at noon, 11 or noon, and it closes at 7. For Pat's House, it's primarily used by the younger children and the families of the younger children. They're on the ice from 5 to 6 p.m. usually. The Carriage House can be used for dining after hockey. I believe it closes at 10.
Thank you.
I have a question too, just related, since I think you're probably the person to ask it, but it touches on something that you had brought up. It was about the food and needing to change, some of these changes to accommodate the number of people, and that was referenced a number of times, like the number of people. So I guess I'm curious, I know you said your membership's not going, you're not planning to increase it, but I'm wondering how many members do you have now versus how many members did you have in 1991 when this was when there was last approval for a site plan?
I don't have the data from 1991, unfortunately. We could try to dig that up. I don't have it here. I can tell you over the last 3 or 4 years, our membership is basically flat.
Well, while we're asking questions, we probably should have asked last time. When you said that the hockey rink is used from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., does that include maintenance within that? I mean, the prepping it before and after, or is that just skate time?
So it's both. So during the week, we're contemplating hours of 7 to 10 p.m. 7 to 10 for the maintenance during the week can happen early in the morning because the kids are largely in school except on holidays. So the maintenance would be from 7 to 9 a.m. roughly, and the on-ice activities would be from after the maintenance is done until 10 p.m. After 10 p.m., in order to prepare for the next morning, there's some amount of maintenance that has to happen. We expect that in most cases, it will be completed by 10:15 to 10:30.
So you say that's during the week. What about on weekends?
On the weekends, hockey always ends at 10. There are no on-ice activities, not just hockey, any on-ice activities past 10, and then the maintenance schedule after that would be roughly the same. The only difference on the weekends is that's when the kids play hockey. We host games from teams that come from Long Island, other parts of New Jersey, so the games have to be on the weekend. And the first game starts at 7 a.m. So we are proposing in our conditions of approval to be able to start maintenance at 6 a.m., which again is consistent with how we've operated for the last several decades.
And is that also consistent with other clubs in New Jersey that have outdoor rinks?
It is. We've gathered data from other clubs in New Jersey, the tri-state area that are in our club league that Beacon Hill participates in, and it's substantially similar.
I have to ask the question, how loud is a Zamboni? Or whatever you're going to be using to treat your ice?
I mean, I don't think he's qualified to answer that question. He's
Well,
not.
do we have somebody who is?
No. I mean, I would
Should
say
we
it's gonna
have?
be
I'm trying to.
significantly.
We don't allow a whole lot of things to happen in Summit before 8 o'clock in the morning,
So,
like lawnmowers
I
and
guess
gardeners, et cetera, and I want to know what the equipment that you're, and maybe you're not using a Zamboni, I apologize.
It is a
Whatever-
Zamboni.
My-
Well, they're
so
different.
Whatever you're using,
Yeah.
how much volume and how far will it go to affect neighbors?
so I guess my response to that is, over the last 50 years, Summit has never applied the noise ordinance because, and same thing with these other clubs. Summit's noise ordinance and New Jersey's noise ordinance are similar. So these other clubs are also operating on the same hours. A Zamboni is like a snowplow or the snow maintenance removal equipment, which is actually exempt from the portion of the noise ordinance. Lawnmowers are not, leaf
It's
blowers are not.
exempt from an
Snow
ordinance?
Yeah, I don't think you're
blowers and-
comparing apples to apples,
Yeah.
though.
I
Well,
wonder
but
how
Zamboni-
that happens.
Zamboni's an option, snow plowing, kind of, clear streets to get to hospitals and stuff, so you're not really comparing apples to apples.
Well, they're talking about on private property. Snow blower, right.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I would again just state that for 50 years, Summit has never applied the noise ordinance to this site. It has always been outside of the scope.
Doesn't mean there isn't a first time. And it doesn't.
I would say the loudest tool that we have used in the past is actually the ice edger, which is a handheld tool that's used to smooth out the ice in the area that abuts the boards where the Zamboni can't reach. And we've replaced that equipment with the electric version, so it's much more quiet. I would venture that none of the neighbors can hear it anymore. We had a Bobcat machine that moves snow around on the property as it comes off the ice. We're gonna limit the use of that Bobcat into the hockey and maintenance operating hours.
Okay.
And, excuse me, I'd like to also point out there is significant landscaping that's being proposed that will buffer a lot of the sound that's existing right now.
I'm sure we'll ask your landscape
Yes.
people about that. Any other questions?
I guess, can I just go
Carl,
back
do you
to
have
my
anything?
member question?
Yeah,
So,
couple.
the Zamboni thing.
Okay.
It was just being discussed. I Googled it. Based on Google and what I found, the decibel level that is being discussed from a couple different websites is 77 decibels. So looking what an equivalent with that would be, it's the equivalent of like a vacuum cleaner. That's what it says. I don't know if it's truth or not, but just to give some perspective, because I was curious with everybody talking, what it is, that's what I was able to pull off.
Interesting.
So, I don't know if that helps or hurts, but some info.
Facts never hurt.
Yes. Yeah, so I checked 3 locations, and they all say between 75 and 80. 77 popped up twice.
And you
Okay.
said that's similar to a vacuum cleaner?
I'm sorry?
Is that similar to a vacuum cleaner?
That's what it
Okay.
states. But the thing is, I don't know the distance of where you're hearing this. I don't know how the Zamboni would be affected with the boards up. If the sound is bouncing off and echoing it up. I don't know any of that stuff, so, if it's something that is a determination, I would recommend maybe a sound expert get involved.
I mean,
Some
if
type
I
of
could also
information.
just say though, the ice rink is not a part of this application. There's nothing
But the chiller
changing.
is.
The chillers, but the chillers are not
Okay,
making
I'll
the
ask
noise.
question number 3 on that. When you put in new chillers, do you have to, those chillers obviously deal with the ice? Are you gonna have to put in new pipes underneath the ice, or is the old, and how old are the current pipes to be able to have what it
Yeah,
needs to
they're-
do with the new chillers? Are
They
gonna
were
overdrive it?
replaced, I want to say 3 years ago. Two years ago, all the pipes under the rink, which was a significant project.
I
So,
don't think so.
yeah, there's no need to replace those.
And
They're
and
still
those
working.
were done with a permit from the city?
I was not involved.
Was
I would
not
imagine
involved at
that
this
there
time,
was-
but I would
I would
say
imagine that there
almost
was a permit,
certain.
yes. The contractor would have had to have gotten a permit.
I would hope so. Okay. Just asking the question as to, because then, you know, if you had to replace those, then the whole ice
It
rink
would
would
make
be in
sense
it.
to do the chillers right and the.
So I'm
yes.
trying
Yeah.
to get to the bottom
Yes.
of it.
Understand.
So, just,
Any other questions from the experts?
Yep.
Yes,
oh,
sir.
from the experts.
Back to the architect.
Yes.
Okay, back to the architect.
I appreciate that, I wanted to get all that out of the way.
Good. Oh, okay, we got more info.
The chillers were put in last year. These aren't new, different chillers that we're putting in here. They're
They're just
existing.
being relocated.
relocating it from one place to another, because right now it's right against the.
They're being moved.
Yes.
Yes, they're being
Okay.
Before
But they're
we,
the same equipment that's there now.
Yes.
So if we listen to them, we're hearing what we're going to hear, just in a different location.
Correct.
so,
Okay.
Joe, Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before we go back to the, so Zamboni's out of the question, except for when it goes from the maintenance garage to being driven to the ice, correct?
Correct.
So, really, Zamboni's not out of the question, because it is being used outside of the ice rink to go from the garage to the house, to the rink. And then the noise is still there, whether it's on the ice rink or being driven from the garage to the ice skating rink. So I think it is kind of relevant to the discussion about noise. Am I wrong?
You and I agree. That anybody else would.
Again, I think when you hear from the landscape architect, you'll see that there's significant landscaping that should buffer any of the noise.
I have some other questions too,
Is it-
related to not the Zamboni, but are you?
All right, are we working on him or are we working on the architect?
I guess just one for you. Do you know how many members you have now, since we don't know how many you have in 1991? Just trying to,
We have 350, give or take a couple,
Families.
regular members.
okay. And that's member is like family, so,
A member's
Plus
an
kids.
individual, but there's a
Right, they're
family
family.
with
Okay.
it, yes.
great, thanks.
Does that increase for the hockey season, though? Is there hockey memberships?
We do have a limited number of hockey memberships that are renewed annually. I'll have to see my notes if I have the numbers on that.
Okay. So
They're obviously seasonal.
So it'd be
um,
above the 350, though? Or would that,
It would be above it would be incremental to the 350. But the hockey membership, they're used to fill slots on team. It's not the core of the hockey operation. It's designed for the membership of Beacon Hill.
Yes.
Question.
Okay.
Is
I just
is
wanna
the
make sure you
majority
got-
of your members there for hockey? I mean, playing hockey, you're having a part of the hockey program?
Well, people join Beacon Hill for various reasons. That is the unique asset that is at Beacon Hill, is the hockey rink. The next closest one would be Essex Hunt in the Bedminster area. But everyone joins, has different motivations. Obviously, we have the skating program also. There's the pool, rackets. But the Beacon Hills policy is to guarantee a spot on a team for any child or adult member that
Yeah, I'm
wants
just
to
trying
play
to get an
hockey.
idea of the use of Pat's house, just, is it?
It's like 3 months out of the year, basically.
And the majority of the members are participating in the hockey program, that they are using that facility?
Well, so the use of Pat's house, for hockey activities, the players will usually get changed in the locker rooms inside the carriage house, and Pat's house is used typically by the families who are there to watch, who want to stay warm and watch the kids play.
Way back in my ancient history, I used to have, and I don't know if this disqualifies me, but it shouldn't. I used to have, the Downtown Association all had dining memberships for lunches. Do you still have those, and would they be able to utilize some of these new facilities? Do you still have, and I don't know if
We
just
do
them-
have dining members, but as the name suggests, the scope of that membership is very limited to dining. So,
Okay.
so the
And
answer
that's
is no.
That's
They-
above the 350.
Correct. It's roughly another 100 of these limited classes of membership that have limited access to the facilities beyond dining.
But if they happened to show up and wanted to go out to Pat's house and watch a hockey game, they could.
They could go watch a hockey game in the same way that my in-laws, the kids' grandparents could come watch a hockey
Okay.
game if they chose to, yes.
Yeah, but that may increase the use of the restaurants downstairs, the new dining areas.
Not really beyond anything we do currently, I wouldn't expect.
Okay.
Because we have dining in the carriage house now. Pat's house will not have dining, it's just a warming facility. It'll just be a nicer one.
I'm thinking of the, you went through a number of places that were now a new bar and a new dining area, so I'm thinking of that more than Pat's house.
There is an existing bar and dining.
Correct.
In the carriage house now.
Yeah.
Yep, in there. Okay, any other questions for the club? Okay, can we go back to the architect?
Yes.
Okay,
Pardon the
Tom.
detour, but we got that out of the way.
Right.
So back to architecture. One of the primary concerns is impacts to the residential properties.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're aware of that. So the question as it relates to Pat's house is how you're going to mitigate the light impacts while it's dark.
So the lighting will be on timer, similar to the lighting that's overhead, so it'll be controlled that way. It'll also have sensors. Also, the light levels will be fairly low in there, and with the new landscaping and the distance back of 170 feet from the street, we feel that it's going to be a low impact to the actual neighbors on that side. And it'll also be controlled with sensors and timers.
Anything with the glass or the glazing that would help you?
We could explore that.
Might be worth considering. Just, we don't know I'm sure we'll hear from the landscape architect.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, I'm just thinking, second floor illuminated at whatever time of night. I know you close at what, 10 p.m.?
Yeah.
Everyone's out, so, okay. As far as, I guess, what you could do with the windows, would it be a film or type of glass, or what would your recommendation be?
I have to look into it. It'd most likely be a film, but I'm not sure what would be the best for that instance.
Okay.
Usually we're trying to block light the other way, not from coming in, not going out.
Right, going out.
Yeah.
Final question would be, are there going to be any audio system improvements to the outdoors?
To the outdoors, whatever's existing is gonna remain.
So nothing proposed?
No.
That's it for me, Mr. Chair.
okay. Carl, nothing more? Board members?
Actually, I have a question for Mr. Ball. We've talked about elevated decks. How do the covered patios on the second floors count for FAR? Do they?
If they're not enclosed, they wouldn't count.
Any questions from that side?
I have two questions.
Go ahead.
One, was your question about Pat's house, or was it about the carriage house, that patio?
It would
Just
apply to both, but
Because
it's.
I was actually wondering that same question with respect to the square footage of Pat's house. Like initially, when it was calculated, whatever, was it 1,120 square feet? That's the building, the
That's
floor area?
the base footprint, the first floor.
That's the ground
Yeah.
floor.
Yep.
And then when you add in the second floor, how many, what is that?
The square footage of
Because I feel like that's sort of
Okay.
might not be represented here, because it looks like we're just going up 55 square feet, but we're actually adding a whole second floor of usable space, where there was like basically a little porch there before.
So the new roof deck is 360 square feet, give or take, and the new addition on the second floor is about 885 square feet.
Okay, so plus 885 square feet on the second floor. Okay, so What
And just-
is
Sorry,
the-
I'll just give you a little more information. The existing second floor is 155 square feet.
okay.
Yeah.
What is the capacity of people in those two floors?
In the two floors.
Like what
I
would
don't
you
have
say?
that in front of me. I know we're keeping within code compliance for it.
Well, I'm asking because there was something about the fire code not being required for an accessory structure, and I think that's because we're assuming an accessory structure is a garage, and nobody's spending a lot of time in their garage, but now you have a lot of people in this accessory structure, right? And you have a fireplace in there, and you have now extra people in there, because, yeah, who doesn't want to go look at it from the second floor? They're not going to be in the carriage house, they're now going to be in Pat's house, more people viewing there. And I think that that fire, mitigation is super important, because
Right.
you're gonna have a lot of people in there.
Right, we're gonna comply with what the building department limits.
But
Or
the
sorry,
way
the
that you
fire
addressed it was that there's no code right now, it doesn't apply because it's an accessory structure, and I feel like that I would like to see something addressed and not sort of,
This was, so.
complying with something that there's no rules for yet,
Yeah.
but acknowledging that we're gonna have a lot of people in this building, and so it's not really an accessory structure. It maybe by definition of what the building is, but the use of it is an actual building structure, not like a garage with people in it. And I just think that we need to hear some address, a little bit about that.
The way we calculated it was with an assembly space. So this was building code, not zoning ordinance, that we were referring to for sprinkler coverage. So given the assembly use and the amount of square footage and the construction type, we're within those limits of the building code, we're within the limits to not have a sprinkler system. And that's what I was referring to. So it wasn't accessory structure, it was assembly space actually that we used in our calculations. So that's what we're discussing with the fire department, with the way it's built now and with the code compliance in an assembly space, will they deem it acceptable for no sprinkler? So we're gonna have that conversation with them and we'll comply with what they suggest.
For clarifications, if they deemed it necessary for the sprinkler, would you comply?
Um,
And just for clarity, for the fire department to declare that, not us.
We'd have to explore it because of the difficult nature of doing that and piping that through the actual site. It's extremely difficult. We'd have to explore that.
So you're not completely not agreeing to comply with it at this point?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. Can you, so you're using that space as an assembly use. Does it need to meet ADA requirements then?
So it has an equal viewing space in the lower floor as the upper floor. That's the same use, and the lower floor is ADA accessible. So because it has an equal use,
So you don't need to meet ADA?
no, technically ADA.
So if I'm in a
feel-
wheelchair and I want to go to the second floor, I can't.
Technically not, no.
And can you go back to A11, your drawing?
Sure.
I'm not sure I quite understood that drawing.
Lost our connection here.
Well, it didn't show a garage for the Zamboni.
Oh, we're keeping the Zamboni in the same place it's parked now.
I thought you said there was a bay for it.
In the carriage house.
In the carriage house. This is in the
But
carriage.
It didn't show a garage door for it. It only showed that man door, unless that man door was in the garage door, and I just didn't see it.
Yeah, so there's so if you look, so currently the Zamboni's parked here in the maintenance facility. We're gonna
Mhm.
keep it there.
Right.
And there's the overhead door here.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this large overhead door here for the gators and all
Okay.
of those pieces of equipment to be parked inside here, so they're not parked outside.
Can you go to A11 now?
Sure.
Maybe I missed it. Maybe it's just me.
Here you go.
Maybe I'm getting old.
So this is the existing door
Okay,
with the man door.
okay, so that's the garage door.
That's existing, yep,
Okay.
that's where the Zamboni's gonna be parked, and then the gators and other equipment
Yeah,
will use
okay.
this
I
new
just-
door here.
It's just my eyes. I thought that was just
It's okay.
just an entrance door.
And we're not using that as an egress door either, it's just an access door.
But that building's gonna be fully sprinkled.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public for the architect? Questions from the public? Seeing none? Questions for the architect based on his testimony? Okay, seeing none?
Next witness is the traffic engineer, Craig Paragoy.
At the end of the hearing. Yes.
Is that good?
I'll work around it.
If we get there tonight.
All right, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Sure, my name is Craig Paraguay, Peregoy.
Thank you, and can you briefly describe your background and experience for the board?
Sure, I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Virginia Tech. I'm a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey. I've been working as a traffic engineer for 24 years now. I've testified pretty much on a nightly basis, including here in Summit many times as an expert in traffic engineering.
Any questions from the board, or would you like to accept
Questions?
them once again?
Questions on credentials? No? Please
Okay.
proceed.
What were you requested to do in your capacity as a traffic engineer with regard to this application, and how did you prepare for that commission?
Sure, I was asked to review the site plan, the site layout as in referencing vehicular and pedestrian circulation, take a look at the parking supply, traffic impacts, and just a general assessment of the overall development program. So obviously, I've visited the site, worked with the project team, reviewed the plans, reviewed the city's review letters, and made assessments based on, what's actually happening and based on ITE data, which is what we as traffic engineers utilize. It's more generically when we don't know the operation. Here we do. Yeah, it's fine. Pretty nice colors on it there. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay,
Never
can
stop.
you describe for the board the existing conditions as they relate to off-street parking and on-site circulation?
Sure, as you heard before, well, there's 74 parking spaces on the site now. There was an approval granted in 2020 that referenced 72 parking spaces. I don't know where the 2 extra parking spaces came from, but there are 74 parking spaces now. You heard a lot from the engineer earlier. I won't completely reiterate everything he said, but there are some challenges on the site, the way it's laid out. That upper campus, or the bottom of the page there, there's a row of unstriped parking. So, we say you can fit however many vehicles in there, but if everybody doesn't park neatly, then that's not happening. It's a narrow drive aisle and a little bit of an awkward configuration with those 2 non-compliant ADA spaces. The lower campus, again, there's angled parking where it's not a one-way drive aisle, which as a traffic engineer, that drives me crazy. That's completely not something you should have, because if I'm going to visit this facility and I'm parked in an angled parking space and I want to leave, I assume that I can only go one direction, and then you hit a dead end. So that's being solved for here in 2 ways. We're putting perpendicular parking spaces with an appropriate drive aisle, so it's two-way traffic, and also providing that drop-off or that cul-de-sac or turnaround space at the end. Serves 2 purposes, allows for drop-off, somebody wants to drop off their kid with the hockey equipment and then go find a parking spot. And also, if you get a little greedy and try to get one of the better parking spaces and there isn't one available, you're not stuck making a K-turn, you can use that loop to turn back around. So, big improvements on the site from a circulation perspective. I did take a look and do my best to see if we could find any more parking or any more little things, and there's really not much without increasing the impervious coverage, which we don't want to do. And even then, I could maybe get 2 more parking spaces on there. I don't think it would be worth the change, especially considering that prior testimony you heard was that the membership's not increasing, the programming's not increasing. This is all being done to improve existing deficiencies. It's an aging facility, so obviously they want to upgrade those existing facilities to make it better experience for the membership, and they're doing that on the site with that improved parking and circulation. I think I might have gone more than just your question, but go ahead.
That's okay. And then you referenced the prior approval. What effect does that determination have on the current application?
Yeah, so essentially, 2020, the board approved what's out there today with 72 parking spaces, so then, that sort of becomes the number that was deemed adequate by this board. We're increasing the square footage, which based on your ordinance at 1 per 250 square feet creates an increase in parking requirement of 18 parking spaces. Now 1 per 250 that's pretty high. That's a retail type of parking ratio. We're providing additional spaces. We're actually providing 8 additional spaces, 9 if you count the EV credit that we get from the state. But we are providing 8 additional spaces, again, for the same membership, the same programming. Everything's the same. You saw the architect's presentation. Almost all the expansions are sort of back-of-house type of things, the better locker rooms, the expanded kitchen.
better accommodations instead of having people squeezing into Pat's house. There's nothing here that's creating en masse more parking demand, but the ordinance requirement is based on the square footage. Now, I look at, as I mentioned before, the ITE, that's the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and they give me some guidance on, you know, we use it mostly for traffic generation, but also for parking. And the ITE for an athletic club is this, indicates a peak parking demand of 0.12 spaces per member. And you heard there's 350 of the full members and an additional 100. The number that I was given was 456 total when you add up all those members. That comes to 55 spaces. With that ITE number, we have 82. So realistically, based on the experience that they're having, they have enough parking, and based on that empirical data also to back that up, that there's enough parking provided.
And then using sheet 5 of 10 of the engineering plans, can you describe for the board the proposed off-street parking and on-site circulation plan?
Yeah, and I think the engineer went through it. Again, I won't rehash it too much, but the upper parking area, we're providing a conventional, I would call it drive aisle, whereas right now these spaces are unstriped and there's sort of an awkward, I guess, drop-off loop with 2 parallel ADA spaces. So that's a big improvement. And I think really the biggest improvement and the focus of this is the lower campus, like getting rid of that 2-way aisle with angled parking, the dead-end K-turn area, providing a nice drop-off area, which is, like I said, it's good for if somebody gets too greedy and there's no parking available, they don't have to do a K-turn. If you're unfamiliar with the site and you're directed the wrong way, you don't have to do a K-turn. It can be used for pickup and drop-off, not only for hockey, but, you know, Uber and Lyft and things like that if somebody's coming for an event. And, you know, especially if there's alcohol involved, that's obviously a good option. So a lot of benefits to that, and a lot better than sort of just this empty sea of pavement that people are using to turn around in today.
And what impact, if any, will the proposal have on off-site parking or traffic on surrounding roadways?
Yeah, none. I mean, again, the membership is what drives the parking and traffic. That's not changing. I mentioned the ITE data for the parking, and there also is for traffic. The membership doesn't change, so there'd be no increase. If I use the square footage rates that they give, the maximum weekday increase in trip generation in a peak hour will be 28 cars and 28 trips and 37 trips on a weekend. What's typically considered a significant increase in traffic is 100 trips, so well below that threshold that you'd even notice if there was an increase in traffic. Again, with knowing the operation here, we know that there isn't going to be, and the programming is staying the same, but just from a empirical standpoint, if I was looking at this clean slate, didn't know who was going here, that would be the increase in traffic that I would forecast and would be minimal.
Great, I don't have any other questions.
Gentlemen? Carl?
So the layout compared to what's there right now, I agree with his testimony.
So it's better.
Functional better than the angled, wrong way parking aspect. So for what's going on right next to where all the improvements are on, I agree with the testimony added for traffic engineering.
Okay. Tom?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. From the board, questions?
I do. I've been here for hockey games, so I know what that flow looks like during drop-off. And one of the things that I noticed, like even when I'm not a member there, but I go to the skate shop, and a lot of the cars are SUVs, right? They're Expeditions, they're 20, 21 feet long. The parking spaces that you have shown there are about 16.5 feet on one side, and on the other side, they're like both just over 18 or 18.5. So it's not really reflective of sort of what I'll call a hockey car. So my 2 questions, and the EV space that you have, do you think that that's actually going to be usable space? Because it's only 13.5 feet where you enter the curve, right? If I scaled it off, I'm drawing, but I'm just trying to, like, is that going to actually be a functional space? Because I'm envisioning an SUV, large SUV going around that. It's a very tight circle. I did it in my Ford Expedition, not my Explorer today, it's not an Expedition. And I'm just trying to make sure that that is enough space to get a car there and those cars around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are standard size
The
parking
EV
spaces.
space is not. It's, if you look at the line on the left is only like 13 and a half feet, the straight part, before you get to the curve where you're going into the circle.
Let me walk over here so I can see what you're talking about this, how this is just a little bit short?
Yeah,
Yeah, you know what, and maybe it makes sense to actually stripe that out. It should be a full-length space. It's just because the way the circle ties in. You see how here it ties in evenly? So this, we could either have the curb tie in evenly or just stripe it just to keep these people over. But that's a normal size parking space.
okay. But I think it probably should be made a full part, like, to look like a parking space.
Yeah, I see, I didn't know what you meant, but I see what you're saying now. I think it's just the way it's depicted. But yeah, that'll be a full-size typical parking space.
The
That's not bad.
applicant agrees to do that.
Yeah, and then in the space in between the park, because now the parking is straight, as opposed to when it was, I think, the thing about when it was angled, I don't know if you had more or less, or it's the same space. I think you may have had more driveway space.
We actually increased the drive aisle.
The drive aisle
Yeah.
is like, because I have that like 16 and a half feet, right? So I guess during like drop off,
This dotted line is where it ends today, so you can see it's going.
yeah, but they were angled, so they didn't come out as far into the road, like, you know, when you straighten it out, it comes out one way.
Right,
you know?
right.
So I'm not sure that it's like actually a net, the in-between lane. How do you propose, like during drop-offs, just because there used to be more space for that drop-off, and you would see SUVs sort of lined up there, to manage flow of traffic, just, it seems kind of tight for me, like one car can go in or out, you know, compared to, there used to be more cars that fit in that during a drop-off. Now it seems like it's sort of one in and one out.
No, this gives more room and is better. The way it is now, it's not really wide enough for two-way. This is a two-way aisle, and you have this whole loop that can be
So how many cars
used.
can fit there during the drop-off?
I'd say at least 6
It's like 50
around the
feet
outside of that
wide.
thing. Yeah. So this, and this is wide enough for two-way traffic. This is gonna be this is better than what it is today. It'll be easier. I know it's kind of hard to visualize on the
Well,
screen, but it is
yeah,
better.
because I was just trying to scale off on this, and it looks like, do you know what the width is, but the distance between the parking spaces, the end of the spaces?
24 feet, 9 by 18, it's the same size parking spaces and drive aisle that you'd see at
Not the spaces.
ShopRite or
in
Wegmans.
between, you know, on the left and the right. So,
The travel, the path of travel.
yeah.
24
Okay.
feet.
24 feet, okay, because when I scaled it off, it looked like it was less. I had, yeah, it looked like it was actually less than that, maybe 1 inches.
You know, the idea is to make it a, conventional parking aisle like you'd see at any commercial facility out there. Which right now it is not.
Is it your testimony that there's enough space there to make that work?
100%, yes, absolutely, more than enough. Like I said, it's the same dimensions that would be in a Walmart parking lot, let alone this. It's more than adequate.
Can I ask a question along that way? So you have the cars going in, so you have like, say, like a little kids hockey, so everybody's getting dropped off. The cars are going in, how are the cars getting out of the parking spots? It's gonna be backed up, just, it seems like it's not, you can drop a kid off and they're getting out with nothing in their hand. They have to open the back of the, I would guess you have to open the back of the trunk, get your hockey bag out, and it's a.
Yeah, and the idea is all that's gonna happen in this circle. You're saying if there's a
But there's
big
gonna be cars waiting because there's.
beyond
it's
it,
gonna-
well, then, yeah, then they have to wait to
And
back
those
out. If
cars
somebody wanted to
can't get
back out
out.
at the same time, they'd just have to wait till the line moved up. I can't imagine now. I haven't been, I wasn't involved in this during a hockey season, but I can't imagine how it's working now. It's way tighter than
But like
this.
Nissan said, these, you know, that we've seen the hockey car, they're people, you know, have a couple kids playing hockey, they're driving huge cars.
Yep, 9x18 spaces are big enough for all vehicles on the road.
Can you also, earlier, the engineer mentioned the employee parking? And where, did that?
Oh,
maybe
yeah,
mention-
I'll show you.
Did it move, did it disappear?
It's, well, this is generally used by employees, these spaces, but I think we were talking about the unstriped spaces. There's a few unstriped spaces where we don't want people to think they can park there. That's kind of the idea of leaving them unstriped. The employees use them and they know where to park their cars. I think there's 2 parallels along here, and then there's a few, yeah, there it says 5 unstriped, 3 unstriped.
So
The idea is don't invite a guest to park there. It's for the employees.
Okay, so that parking lot's for the employees and then the non-striped spots.
Yeah. Well, these 8, these 14, from what I understand, the employees tend to park there. They're not restricted to employees. These unstriped ones are, the intent is for them just to be for employees.
So how many employees are there at a typical shift? I guess that might be the general manager.
I don't know.
So if there's 10 employees, you don't know? Well, I don't know what the answer is. That's why I'm asking. How many employees are there during an average shift?
I'm not sure, I'll text you.
'Cause if there's-
an answer.
You know, during an average day, if there's 12, that's 12 spots you're losing unless you require them to park in the employee spot, unless you require them.
It's, there's no increase in the number of employees.
Well, that's
We're
not- that's
increasing
my
the number of
question.
parking spaces, but not the number of employees.
No, I get that.
So this application
that.
makes it
I
better,
get that.
whatever the answer is in terms of the number.
Can you explain the driveway that goes by the clubhouse with this new parking? Why did you keep the driveway there? Or, you know, would it be an option to just add some more parking spaces if you had them along the curve like that? Kind of like what you have at the bottom, you know?
This lot you're talking about?
Nope, by the main clubhouse.
front door of the main
front-
club.
Where it says.
Down here?
Yeah, so instead of having that straight, like, could you have gotten more does it make sense to consider putting, you know, to achieve closer to the number that would be, you know, required, instead of having it in there, put it where that driveway that goes right up against the house? It seems like you would be able to get more parking spaces in there, and then your ADA spaces would be really right close to the building if you made that.
Oh, you mean put the pool, these, like you
Yeah,
pull in here and then
yeah,
you'd
yeah.
have, this would become an island?
It just seems like you could fit more spaces around that curve.
See, I was gonna ask the
Maybe.
exact opposite question.
Maybe, but again, like the same situation, like I don't, you know, we don't really need the extra parking necessarily, but we want to provide a better layout. It happens to give us more parking spaces. You know, I looked at, you know, how can we reconfigure this, there's
Well, how
nothing
much
that's not
parking
gonna
is
create a lot
required, I
more
guess?
damage than it's worth.
I guess I'm trying to see if we can is there a way to get to closer to the number of spaces that are required?
Not substantially. I mean, like I said, every way you look at it, I mean, maybe there's a way to do with a lot more improvements and, you know, unnecessarily 2 or 3 more spaces, which I don't think is gonna make any difference. We're keeping the existing operation and adding more parking spaces, so it's going to be an improvement. We're not finding another 50 spaces or whatever it is on here. It's not gonna happen without, well, that's not gonna happen at all, but you're not gonna find a substantial or meaningful number of spaces without compromising the layout or adding unnecessary impervious.
So as long as we're talking about that driveway, are you going to allow parking there or you are not going to allow parking there?
Along, like,
That,
parallel
yeah.
parking? I mean, it's not, I don't know what the fire department would say about it if there was
That's kind of why I'm asking.
a big event or something and they were okay with it, I guess. I mean, it's wide enough that you could have cars parked there, but there's no intention to do that.
So that goes back to kind of my question about the employees. I like to do seat engineering. There's 350 members. If half of them show up for an event, that's 100 and something cars. Where do they all park?
Oh, if there's like a big event, they can increase with valet parking, they've done that, and then they use off-site parking resources if there's a big event like that.
It's not, they're not gonna shove
'Cause I was there for
170
an event.
cars on this property.
I was there for an event a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
and that that main entrance was parked to the left. They were parked everywhere.
Yeah,
So I know from experience that that driveway gets packed.
yeah,
So-
and that's, I mean, they still could, that still could be used as probably a valet situation, they still could.
I think that's something that should be explored with
But
the
there's be,
emergency services in town.
but now there'll be 9 less cars not in a parking space. I mean, you know, it's, none of that's gonna change. Those events, those things aren't gonna change, but we're still adding parking.
I had some slightly different questions about parking, and it was just counting. The memo with the original submission wasn't numbered, I went ahead and numbered it. So on page 7, it said you were adding 11 spaces, but also going from 74 to 79 spaces. On page 14 of that memo, it said the net increase was from 74 to 81 spaces. And now, the engineering, I'm on page 5 of 10, which is consistent with April, it says 83 spaces. I've counted it many times, I can only get to 82.
Because you get a bonus for the EV space.
It's the EV.
So one EV space counts as 2 spaces?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So, this, in 2020, this board approved 72 spaces and said 72 spaces
Okay.
was enough for this exact
I
operation.
know.
There's 74 now, I don't know how that, I don't know what happened in the 5 years. I don't know
Okay.
if there's 2 extra, somebody didn't count it then.
Okay.
And now
It's
we're
better
going
that
to
some were
82.
added and not taken
Now we're
away.
really going to 82.
Right, but
Okay.
technically 83 because of the EV space, but there'll be 82
There will be 82
physical strip
cars that
spaces,
can,
yes.
right, okay.
Correct.
Because there were just a lot of numbers in all of this
The plans
submission.
changed from when the original
Okay.
application was submitted.
And there is one less of the spaces is down in the lower area by the hockey and the paddle courts. Then there used to be, I think, 30, and now there's 29 down here. And obviously, you've added spaces up here, so it's sort of shifting the balance a little bit, too.
That's also to make
Sounds right.
those spaces compliant.
So just to clarify that, what was memorialized, it was memorialized in 2020. It was really the 1991 zoning, what zoning passed in 1991 was memorialized in 2020 for the parking spaces. Is that correct? So it's really a 91.
There was an application in 2020.
Because the way it's written here is like, it makes it look like what was passed in 1991 wasn't memorialized until 2020, and I feel like,
There was an application before the board in 2020 for the main clubhouse that needed a variance for off-street parking.
Yeah,
okay.
so 72 was approved.
Because it's, the building addition is ZB 19-1991, so, and then, you know, it said
It was
approved
2019.
in-
That's a
It was
2019.
submitted in 2019.
Yes.
Got it,
And
okay.
so it was approved in
Got it.
2020.
All right, I thought that was the year
No.
1991, that's what I'm trying to clarify. Thanks.
I have a question about the EV spot. Is there hours that you can be charging the cars? It's something that somebody could go park their car overnight and leave it there? I mean, does the...
That would be up to the club. I
But
don't
it doesn't
think-
shut off?
Yeah, I don't think they're
EVs
gonna-
don't shut off, they stay on all night long?
Yeah, generally, but I don't think the club will allow somebody to leave their car there overnight.
There are EV stations that can require a credit card and things like that, so I don't know what they'll install.
I don't believe the club permits overnight parking. So,
Maybe the owner drives a Tesla, though.
One-
Exception.
When do they make the decision that, okay, we gotta go to valet parking, and, you know, what brings that decision along, and at what level of usage?
I asked a similar question. I mean, they may have more specifics, but it's just they know which events. It's usually not close. Like day-to-day operation, they have more than enough parking. When there's going to be an event that requires valet, they know there's not going to be enough parking. I don't know what their internal thresholds or numbers are, but they're aware.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions from the public for this witness? Questions only from the public. I don't see any. And now I look at the clock. And we normally, you still have one more to go.
Two.
A wrap up,
Landscape architect, which should be fairly quick.
two more to
and the
go.
plan.
And then you have the plan. Board members, I'm seeing you all shaking your heads, or a number of you going, this.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say one statement. Given that we've had a number of interests from the public, that make sure we allocate enough time for comments. So whether we want to hear somebody fast or not.
We're not going to hear anything fast, we're going to hear this
No, I'm
properly.
saying to give them enough time
Yes.
so that we're not pinching pennies later on.
No, we're not going to, they'll get the time they need to make the comments they wish to make. What are we looking at if we adjourn this?
Our agendas are pretty packed, but I guess we can do November 19th.
Is that a date you can,
Sure.
okay? Anybody,
Is it?
okay, so we would need a motion to carry this to November 19th without further notice, and you're going to grant us the time to act, correct?
So, I'm sorry,
Just
what?
waiving the time frame for the board to act.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I asked. Okay.
So moved.
Is there a motion?
Moved.
I'll second it.
Sorry. The motion was from Ms. Toth, correct?
Right.
And the second was,
Mr. Nelson.
gotcha. Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Zahn?
Yes.
Ms. Toth?
Yes.
Ms. Chifo?
This is to vote
To
Carry.
carry.
No.
To carry to the 19th?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Mr. Feskins?
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli?
Yes.
Chairman Steiner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay. We're going to welcome back our members that have recused themselves and have been very kindly sitting and waiting, and we have some more business to take care of. First one is a resolution for extension at 14 Winchester. Did you, which one of you wants to explain it?
Okay. Yeah, so the resolution for 14 Winchester is requesting an extension. They had actually obtained a building permit previously within the required time frame under the original resolution. Due to financial constraints and complications, that they couldn't complete the project. The building permit lapsed within the 1 year it was granted, so now it's about 6 months after that lapse. They're coming in to ask for another extension until May of I believe it's until May of next year. And they anticipate completing everything, getting a new permit, completing everything by that point.
So they started no work at all?
I'm not sure, I assume because the building permit
Right,
was
that's-
deemed lapsed
Okay.
and revoked, at least no significant work
Right.
was complete.
So you said 6 months from when it was approved that they came back to ask for?
They obtained a building permit, it went a year, and then that building permit lapsed. So it was almost 2 years after the resolution was granted. So they got the building permit within the 1 year period, and then 1 year on top of that, it lapsed. And that was in May of this year.
And they waited till now to come back to say,
Yes.
They may not have wanted to proceed with it, they may be looking at it, but extending it is in line with what we've been approving recently.
but even if they wait that long to,
We have done approvals of extensions after the fact in the past, just for reference.
And it may, it may be that it took until now to get their financial ducks lined up in a row and know they could go forward.
That is what was indicated in the letter.
That's what the
It
letter
was
indicates.
challenging to figure out exactly what was indicated in that letter.
We all know who wrote it.
Lawyers.
Unless there's any questions, can we just make a motion?
So we would look for a motion to approve the resolution extending this, which I believe you all got.
I don't get the votes.
So moved, so moved.
Second.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Zahn,
Yes.
Mr. Kieran,
Yes.
never mind, Ms. Toth,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo.
Yes.
The motion carries. So the next one
And
we
then
have
there-
is, we have one more resolution.
Yes, we have a resolution for memorialization 71 Pine Grove.
Yes, so that's 71 Pine Grove Avenue, Christian and Katie McCormick, ZB-24-2251, Block 3102, Lot 16. Our eligible voting members for that one are Chairman Steiner, Vice Chairman Loiketz, Mr. Nelson, Ms. Zahn, Ms. Toth, Ms. Chifo, and Mr. Feskins. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded? Ms. Zahn, okay. Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Zahn,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
Ms. Chifo,
Yes.
and Mr. Feskins.
Yes.
The motion carries.
And we have two sets of minutes.
Yes, so we have two sets of minutes. Our first set is from September 4th, and we will exclude the members who were excused that evening, which were Mr. Curran, Mr. Yuko, and Mr. Malay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And then the next set of minutes are for September 16th, and we will exclude the members who were absent that evening, which were Mr. Yuko and Ms. Zahn. Do we have a motion
Moved.
and a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
And our next meeting is October 21st. So, thank you all, appreciate it. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor, please leave.